All right, we're going to start, and then the computer's going to catch up with us. Anyone who can stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please join us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And that's why I wasn't on TV.
Sorry, I should have said first, I'm calling this meeting to order on November 30th, 2023. This is a regular session of the school committee, and it's so awesome to hear all these voices in this room. We're really excited to have you, have all you students here. So that's the first thing on the agenda. Is for the love of learning.
Mrs. Dilisio has brought some students, Stanley Art. We love Mrs. Dilisio's visits with her students every year. So thank you all for coming, and all your families with all your little ones. And I will turn it over to Mrs. Dilisio.
What? That girl's a born leader right there.
Oh, yeah.
Born leader.
We're going to put them just in front of
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's right.
Can we just turn one of these microphones around, Joe, for them?
No, he's going to give us one.
Joe's got a microphone. You don't like Olivia. We're not scary,
me.
really. We're not. We're impressed.
Wait, you guys turn around so the camera can see your
Yeah.
faces. There you go.
You can wave high to the school board and then look at it. All right, so hi, I'm Mrs. Dilisio, and we're here tonight. I come every so often, and each time we have a different theme, and tonight the theme is gratitude. And we use gratitude every day. We talk about gratitude all the time in art class, and I teach 2 SEL classes that a lot of these kids are in. And we're going to have Lizzie Hamilton tell us a little bit about gratitude, and also Clara Henry tell us a little bit about why gratitude is so important in the educational process and why we're even here talking about it tonight. So, Lizzie, could you please tell us this?
In an article titled Giving Thanks Can Make You Happier, Harvard Health Publishing writes that gratitude is strongly and consistently associated with greater happiness. Gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions, relish good experience, improve their health, deal with adversity, and build strong relationships.
Educator and author Dr. Carrie Howells reports that when students practice more gratitude when they study, they experience increased engagement, greater connection to the subject and teacher, a deeper understanding of content, and increased motivation.
Excellent. Excellent, girls. So you could hear why gratitude is so important. And what we're going to show you tonight, so my dad was a civil engineer, and I like to think of myself as an engineer of the classroom, and we had this big problem being a specialist. The classes are every 40 minutes and they go fast, and transitions are hard with children, with anybody. If we told this whole group to stand up and go stand in another room, it would take time, and we'd start talking, and people would Pam would ask you questions, and I got to go to the bathroom, and it was eating up like 15 minutes of our 40-minute art class. So I was like, oh, we got to do something. So we came up with this bell, right? So I rang the bell at the beginning of the class, and then we learned about all this gratitude information. Why don't we just put these 2 together? So the beginning of every single class, from the time they're in kindergarten till the end of 4th grade, on the first day of school to the last day of school, we do a gratitude bell at the very beginning of every art class. And it has been just amazing. It's just been the most wonderful thing that has transpired, because you're going to see how cute and how sweet these children are, and I get to experience these just answers that they give every day. So we're going to do a little demo of how your child's art class starts. So I'm going to ring the bell. While the bell rings, I want you to think in your mind of something that you are grateful for. And each week we try to think of something new and different. So friends and family every time friends and family. But see if you can think of something else that you are grateful for while the bell rings. I would say, is there anyone that would like to share what they're grateful for if we were in art class? And then the kids would raise their hand. And I'm going to start down here with Matthew, actually. So this is Matthew Hamilton. He's in the first grade. Matthew, can you please tell us what you're grateful for?
This whole entire place.
Of course.
So I'm the dog, Officer Wilson, first this morning, that we exist.
So this is a small taste of what I get every day, every 40 minutes. So I get to hear kids like Matthew Hamilton say, coats to keep us warm and that we exist. It's so sweet. This is Deacon Henry.
Dogs, the earth, water, food, the ocean.
Do you have a favorite kind of food?
Pizza.
And then we have Layla Lieberman. Sorry, I'm going to squeeze right here. Layla. All right. Layla, what are you grateful for?
Toys, bed, math, cookies, Miss Borden, my teacher.
Miss Norton. I like Miss Norton too. Do you have a favorite cookie?
Chocolate chip.
And then Layla's holding here, this is a project we did in our SEL class where we did gratitude throughout the year. So the kids drew a picture of what they were grateful for in each month. Layla, was there a month that you were most grateful for?
February is my birthday.
Nice.
Me too, Layla.
February birthday. And then we have Miss Olivia here, and Olivia Ryan, and she is going to tell us what she's grateful for.
My dog Max, my friend, and
Clothes, yes, and you're very, very fashionable. I always like clothes. And she's also holding one of these coasters. And did you have a favorite one? Also, her
yes,
birthday.
excellent.
Nice. And then we have Miss Clara Henry, and she's going to tell us what she's grateful for.
soccer, fireman, PE, drama club.
Nice. And we have Lizzie Hamilton again.
Animals, lacrosse, and helmet, Swampscott, food,
And did you have a favorite food?
sushi.
Sushi. And I wanted to mention too, Clara and Lizzie are in my 4th grade SEL class, and they were part of a big 4th grade project where we did art for local veterans. We do this every year, but this year we did magnets, and Alice Gentry, who's not here tonight, but she was the winning entry. But the runners-up were so good that we had to do something with them, so we put them in frames. And we located them around town, and Clara has art, or had art, hanging up at the middle school around Veterans Day, and Lizzie had art that was hanging up, I think, at the senior center. And the hope was that local veterans would see the art and feel our gratitude. And that's basically what I want to end on, how grateful I am to work in Swampscott. These kids are amazing, families are amazing. And there is so much hope. You've got a small taste of these beautiful children, and what they say every day just blows me away. So, on that, we're going to end with some gifts that we brought. These are from the students of Stanley Elementary School. We have one for each person up here. Each kid in the school, each student in the school made a leaf where they wrote their name and one thing they were grateful for from school. And then we put them together, and hopefully you'll keep it and just be reminded of how grateful we all are to be in this district.
Well done.
We always love your presentations,
No.
Ms. Dilisio, and it's so fun to meet a whole new crew of students. You guys did a super job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
These are beautiful. Layla. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, those are
Thank you so much.
Love it.
I'm going to have to have it in my office.
I know, and pink, my favorite color.
I love that you guys do gratitude. Every day I wake up, I do gratitude too, and the first thing I always say is, I'm so happy I live next to the ocean.
Oh, yes.
That's my first one always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
These are beautiful. Are you able to pull up the agenda now?
Yep.
Okay.
That's why we do what we do.
Next on the agenda, we have a field trip request from Mr. Eddie Rovi. I've asked Mr. Rovi to come before you tonight because it is out an overnight, out-of-state field trip, and so I will let Mr. Rovi take it away. Can you bring up the presentation?
Yeah, you guys have details.
Perfect. Yeah, but you want to bring it up? Then? Okay. Mr. Rovi, we need a mic to give you a microphone. Okay.
Can you hear me? All
Yes,
right.
perfect.
So thank you for having me. That's actually going to be a tough act to follow. It was adorable. But it kind of transitioned into that because we're taking a trip to Disney.
Yes.
So obviously not with elementary school kids, we're with high school kids. And I feel like I was just here like a couple months ago asking for permission to go to New York.
Right.
This one is not until the next school year, but it's expensive, and we need to start budgeting and asking for families to pay, installments. So that's why I'm here early. This trip is scheduled for December 3rd through the 7th of 2024. It's a 4 nights, 5 days trip. It's supposed to be a fun educational trip for the kids. So don't think that I'm taking the kids just to Disney and to go on rides. That's part of it, but we're also doing for other things as well. So the first thing is for them to get, a learning experience out of this. And music trips are awesome. And I plan on doing this every 2 years, with the kids, because every year it gets expensive. Families have to pay for this somehow, and, we'll do fundraisers, but some kids just don't want to fundraise, and they just say, Mom and Dad will pay for it. So I wish we could do all fundraisers, but some kids just don't want to do it. So, but we are going to offer that. So the trip itself is going to be, we're departing by plane. We're not going to take a bus, 24-hour ride bus. So we're doing probably be more expensive, honestly, and not cost effective at all because we wasting 2 days on that. But so it would leave by plane on the 3rd. I'm not sure the times yet because we have to book tickets, and we can book tickets on 310 days before the trip. So around January we'll be able to, or February we'll be able to book tickets. So as soon as this is approved by the school committee, hopefully, we have a fundraiser scheduled, Snap Raise, which is going to run around the holidays and into the new year. So hopefully they'll be good for, Christmas and all the holidays, and kids can ask their, relatives rather than a gift. They can, donate towards their field trip. So the band and corps is going to each do a performance at Disney Springs. I would like them to march at the parade. However, we don't have the numbers yet. They have to have over 85. So hopefully, if you're listening at home, sign up for band. If we have 85, we're definitely going to apply for that.
How many do you have now?
We have 48 right now.
Ooh,
yeah.
okay.
So it's big.
Great goal.
Yeah. It's better than, it's better than 16 from 9 years ago. So
Did you go sell this pitch at the prospective students night?
I wish I did, but so I think we'll be in the 50s for next year. We only have 9 graduating. I only say 9 because last year we lost 16. So this year is 9.
I remember when I started, you had 3 on the field on the football.
Yep.
So to go to what the numbers that you're at right now is impressive, and I hear from everyone in town how much they love hearing you practice. So
Thank you. It's awesome. It's very rewarding. She's in the band, so she plays saxophone. So anyway, so the big thing is performing at Disney Springs. We each going to have that, and we don't know that until 3 weeks before on what day that is. The other thing is we're going to do a workshop tailored towards band and chorus. And again, we'll find those out 3 weeks before. But there are stuff that's going to be addressed to this. And then the other parts is going to be they're going to get a park hop pass to go to Disney. So we're there. We're going to have to do something fun like that, okay? So I don't want to make you jealous, but, we might be looking for chaperones, so we'll see, depending on how many kids go, yeah. So, and that's kind of it, The cost right now is it's slanted at $2,000, but then again, that has to depend with airfare. We have everything else planned out. We're going to do one big dinner with them because when we do park hops, we're going to split up into groups, and kids will be at different parts of the park because everybody likes different things. I don't want to, have 70 kids between band and chorus go all to one park.
Right.
So if we buy the park hopper, we're going to make use of it. So on the first night, when we get there, we'll, check in and stuff like that, and we're going to do one big activity together. So that's me one dinner, and then we'll probably go to downtown Disney, kind of relax, and then have an early night so we can get ready for the performance, hopefully the next day or the day after that. So the main goal is going to be the performance, make sure they do well, because they're going to be playing in front of, I'm sure you all been to Disney, hundreds of people walking by on Disney Springs, so it needs to be good. So our goal is to make sure they sound well. So.
Well, we know how successful New York was, and, this is, in my opinion, a formality just because it's an out-of-state
Okay.
field trip that, but I leave it to the committee for questions and comments. I know how you felt about the New York trip as a committee.
Yeah, New York trip was great. My both daughters went on it. They had a great time, so kudos to everyone.
Thank you.
And all your work on that. I have a couple questions for
Go ahead.
you, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
This sounds like a great idea.
Yep.
My first question is, you mentioned fundraising, and I don't know if the one you mentioned is the only thing that
No,
you guys were
this-
thinking of. I'm just throwing this out as a suggestion. I know the cheerleaders had done what they call canning, which is basically
Yeah.
you stand out in front of like Stop and Shop or another high traffic area. Those were incredibly successful. Raised a ton of money. They actually were doing a Disney trip a number of years ago, and
Perfect.
they helped offset the cost of that. So that
To address that, we're going to have once it's approved by school committee, we're going to have a mandatory parent meeting, and give them all the details. And then at that meeting, this is one of the fundraisers I have, but I'm going to ask for parent volunteers to help with fundraisers. One that we did last year was very successful, was the calendars. That was huge. All that money went towards the kids, and it was $20. And then obviously the prices were donated, so all the profit went towards the kids. One of the kids actually paid for the entire New York trip just by selling calendars. Not kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was awesome. The New York trip was $1,200 for a quad, right?
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So,
I know the other question I'm going to get is, once you guys are down there, is this going to be streamed anywhere? So,
the performance that I will have to ask, Disney. So, I think we can record it because it's out in the public. So we can, I don't know if we can stream it or maybe Facebook Live it, but we can definitely record it and then play it back when we get back here, or and now we can just send it to you. It's nice.
Sorry to hit you with these questions. I'm just,
Oh, that's fine. You kidding me?
Thinking of them as we're talking here, but no, it sounds like a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it sounds like a great trip. Could you just tell us a little bit about the fundraiser you're doing shortly?
Snap Raise?
Yeah.
So Snap Raise, DECA is doing it now. I don't know if you got any emails from DECA kids. They have like 100-something kids in there. Basically, you're kind of asking for money,
Right.
but with a cause. Not just like, I want money because I want shoes.
Right.
So basically, there's, I had a meeting with this guy that runs it from Snap Raise. They get, each kid has to generate 20 emails that they have to send this little like blurb about we're going on a Disney trip, we're doing this and this and this. The trip costs this much money. If you can donate, we will greatly appreciate it. If you can't donate, just send it to somebody else who can, and that's
So
pretty
is it
much
like
it.
GoFundMe, just a different version?
Exactly.
Okay, I've never heard of it,
Yeah.
My
So,
only recommendation on that
Yeah.
is most kids have no idea what anybody's email is. I would
Right.
recommend they text.
text. Okay.
um,
Perfect.
Because
I know emails are a thing of the
I
past.
know it's mine and my husband's, and that's it.
That's it, right?
But they know everybody's number.
And then
Okay.
also the text too, most people have Venmo on their phone, so you just might get people, all right, great, and just da-da-da-da, do like that. I
Perfect.
completely agree.
Okay.
The trip sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Wow, it sounds great.
I just want to say, I don't live near Phillips, but I can hear you guys from
Oh.
Phillips on game days, and I
Thank you.
love it.
Thank you.
You guys are
It
great
was-
at things.
It was awesome
Thank you.
to see you guys in the stands with your with the tent, and
Oh my God.
you guys showed up.
Thank you. We
Thank
did.
you.
We did. The girls wanted us to be there, so
Yeah,
that's what we did.
awesome.
Rain or
So
shine.
this is not, this did not get moved under the actions and votes, and my apologies for not catching that error. So I would love to request a vote right now so Mr. Rovi knows where he stands and when he walks out of this room, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Would someone?
Good evening, this is Mr. Collins speaking. Teachers just here year where we're running a few minutes behind, so we're going to hold everyone in block one for a few more minutes, and when I next get on, TA will be moving to the next block. Thank you.
Can someone make a motion for
Yeah.
this field trip?
I will make a motion that we accept the field trip of the band and chorus to Disneyland.
I'll second it.
Great, all those in favor? All right.
Thank you.
There you
guys
go.
are
Thank
awesome.
you. Good
All
luck.
right.
Easy one.
Happy holidays.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thank you, Ed.
we'll move on to committee comments. Start down here with Sam.
So, sad to say, winter sports officially over, or sorry, fall sports. Winter sports have started, so there's boys, girls basketball, boys hockey, and then I think winter track. So yeah, I can't talk about football anymore. Aside from that, next Friday, progress reports close, and then I think they're posted the following Friday. And then tonight is our prospective open house. I took my little brother here. I don't know who else is here, but yeah, I saw a lot of people outside, so it was nice to see a lot of younger middle school students coming to see the clubs and what's available here at the high school. So yeah.
It's great.
Very cool. Karen?
I don't have anything.
Noelle?
As Sam said, it's a prospective open house, and the French Club is doing a fundraiser for Doctors with No Borders. So if you buy something, all that money goes towards that cause. And I'm very excited that the Disney trip got approved. I'm very excited for that.
Don't worry.
No, yeah, we will start fundraising. He has a lot of ideas for that because it's a little costly.
Yeah.
I hope you need chaperones.
We probably will.
Amy?
There were a couple of things that I wanted to say. So I was very disappointed to see the notification from the high school that in fact Yonder was moving forward. I know I expressed it to you, Superintendent, as well as to the principal. For me, it's almost like nobody's voices mattered because what came out from the high school was simply just that the date had changed. There was no mention of any work that had been done, any kids that had been spoken to. It just felt like everybody should have just wasted, held their breath because it wasn't much. What particularly was upsetting to me was that it's actually the first time that I had seen a progressive discipline program for phones. And I thought, isn't it interesting that we only have this program now that we're talking about Yonder, rather than having started with that. Because basically this tells kids who've been doing their job all along that they can't be trusted.
Good evening, Mr. Coe speaking. If everyone would please proceed to the next block. Please proceed to the next block. Thank you.
So, lastly, we're coming up on what I might call a budget crisis. And the idea of spending $20,000 on these pouches versus educational programming, I think, is lazy and performative and fiscally irresponsible. Except for kindergarten funding, I can't remember the last time that we accepted a grant knowing that it was certainly going to add to our operating budget. So with what we're going to be talking about over the next week, this seems crazy to me. And I want to apologize to every kid who is going to be using their phones for assistive technology, who's now going to have to out themselves. I think it's a terrible thing. The second thing I wanted to talk about was what happened at the select board meeting last week. And I'm really upset by what happened and the fact that not only did the head of that committee promise you that something was going to happen, that you then in turn promised us was going to happen, didn't. And this is now, I think, I've tried to look back on the last few years, this I think is the 5th town meeting in a row where they've essentially run out the clock so that we could not find alternative ways to get our needs onto the warrant. And the way that we're being treated by the town administrator And the stories that he's telling his managers, i.e. the select board, I find unconscionable. And it really is death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're just gonna keep, it's been a multi-year commitment to make us run down our special education money, and they've now done it, and surprise, surprise, we're in a bad position. I'm disgusted by what happened last week. And Superintendent, I appreciate the email that you sent, because the stories that are being told about our fiscal responsibility is shameful. There's my 2 cents.
You were very well spoken, by the way, on that budget. I also thank you, Superintendent, for your email. I thought it was outstanding.
Thank you.
I know several members of this committee have dealt with this longer than I have. This is only my 3rd year on the committee. And that's just a travesty that we're, again, dealing with budget issues that we keep knocking on the door, sometimes loudly, sometimes politely. Doesn't really seem to matter. And, in the coming few years, as more construction happens, whether it's where the old General Glover building was, whether it's construction near the train tracks, we are going to have an influx of students. We can't afford them. I mean, the presentation we saw this evening is why we do what we do. It's why we sit here. It's why we crunch numbers. It's why we go to meetings. It's why we have bargaining. It's why we want to send students to Disney. I don't have a really clear answer other than we're being lied to. It really doesn't get any clearer, or there's no anger. It's really factual. I was pretty disappointed myself with the outcome of the select board meeting. I was incredibly hopeful. I was actually incredibly charged up about what we had hoped was going to happen. Wouldn't have solved all the problems, but I think it certainly would have helped, and I know it would have made most of us sitting in this committee feel much better. I don't really know what to do other than to say to the public, again, as we said last year, you have to get involved, because if you don't, we are going to be looking down the barrel of some very unfortunate decisions that this committee is going to have to make, and that the superintendent's going to have to make. And whether we talk about why are we still taxing at 2%? Are we talking an override? What are we talking about? And what's the money going to look like next fiscal year, the fiscal year after that, and the fiscal year after that? We sat here the last couple of years and talked about special education, which, as you guys all know, is near and dear to my heart about funding. What's going on right now is just inappropriate on many levels. So whether we make a statement during committee comment or board discussion at this special town meeting, something needs to give here, everybody. And it's really not a joke any longer. It really is getting incredibly concerning. I know, Cheryl, you crunch the numbers. I've been crunching the numbers too. It's not good. Could be worse. It could always be worse. But it's not great. And something needs to happen. I think all of us want to work collegially with anyone and everybody. But what transpired was very disappointing. That's what I have.
John?
Thanks. So I appreciate the comments from Amy and from Glenn. I guess I'll start with, since we're talking about budget, I'll start there with some thoughts just on the select board meeting. I was also really disappointed. I think the part that really stuck out for me as far as, my disappointment was just some of the mischaracterizations of, all the work that had been done by not just the committee, but the superintendent and her team and Cheryl to make this a more collaborative process, because we had talked about that last year. Coming into this year, it's like, let's be more collaborative. And it was just very disappointing to hear that just misrepresented during that meeting. And I also want to recognize, Superintendent, your email. I thought it was very succinct and really, told the story that very well. So I just want to acknowledge that as well. And just as far as our story, I think, Glenn, just picking up on what you said, I'm not sure what specific next steps are, but I think, maybe going to that town meeting and again, just, verbalizing our story, kind of the work that's been done, just so, people know, that this is not something that was a last minute thing or anything else. So, I'm happy to, come to that meeting with, anybody else on the committee. And if anybody else wants to make a statement, I'm happy to join in that. As far as Yonder, I couldn't have said it better than Amy did. I think, everyone knows where, I kind of landed on this thing. I thought less intrusive was probably the way at least to start this thing. And I read, I saw something this morning about, incident up in Lowell, where some folks were posing as Verizon workers or something, trying to get into a school building. And it just, nothing happened, but it just makes you think, well, what if it was, one of our schools and something happened?
David wants to add that Mr. right now, please move to block 3. Please move to block 3. Thank you.
So anyway, it kind of brought it all back up to the floor for me. And, Superintendent, I know we had talked a little bit previously, the last meeting or the meeting before that, I don't recall, but about, just what Amy said about funding source going forward on this thing. And, how can we justify that when there's other budget priorities as well? So I'm glad you acknowledged that. Because I think that's definitely going to be part of the discussion, with Yonder going forward. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
I don't have any committee comment. I think I'll just during the tri-chair update, I'll let you know what has happened since that select board meeting.
Could I make a few comments, though, based on committee comments?
Sure.
First of all, we got a warning 2 weeks ago that I sent to my leadership team from the FBI regarding people coming to schools trying to get into them. So that already was sent out to security monitors and to the principals well before Thanksgiving. We knew this was coming, that this was a potential, so everybody was on the lookout for that. Secondly, I'm sorry, Amy, you and Karen didn't make the last school committee meeting when we had the budget committee of the whole, and I talked about Yonder. One of the key pieces, there has been a lot going on at the high school, and it's unfortunate that Mr. Kohut didn't put that in his email in terms of discussions with the school council, which involves parents and students and teachers regarding a cell phone policy going forward. But a couple of things have happened since the initial Yonder proposal here and the initial email that went out. One is that, most important one, I can't remember. But,
You're going so great.
I know, it was so
The lead up was outstanding.
I know,
Maybe
but I will tell you this. I have been in classrooms at the high school here, and I know what the first one was, that I've been disappointed by how much TikTok is being watched during classes. How many phones put like this, and the teachers at the front of the room, and nothing but TikTok.
While you were in the classroom.
While I was in the classroom with administrators. I've witnessed administrators going in, talking to the class, and students aren't paying attention because they're watching videos. I witnessed one of our field hockey players re-watching the trauma of the video during class when the teacher's talking, but was so fixated on that accident that was watching that. So I see both sides to this. Unfortunately, I was that kid that could make a true-false answer, true or false, depending what was going on in my head. And so I understand the apprehension. I understand the desire for more communication, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to attend the trainings for the parents. I'm going to attend the trainings for the students. No, I'm sorry, the staff. This parent one I can't go to, though it is on Zoom. But the other thing that I did after everybody came forward and talked about it is I sent out a survey to the high school staff. And I was going to bring it tonight, but I didn't know that it would come up, so I was going to bring it at the December 14th meeting because the parent night for Yonder is December 13th. But the one that sticks out to me is 73% of the teachers at the high school want to give Yonder a try. And so I think it was closer to 90% feel like we have a real cell phone problem here. They didn't necessarily think Yonder was the solution, but we have to start somewhere. So I look at this as twofold. The Yonder conversation and the Yonder procedure is going to roll out in January. In the meantime, Mr. Kohut has tasked the School Advisory Council with coming up with what could you live with? And one of the things that they came up with is a locked box with a handle that all the cell phones would go into, and the teacher in the event of emergency would carry that box with them. So there are other things being looked at as a result of this only being grant funded for a year. So those are some things that probably could have been out there more and been told to everybody. But, you know, the survey, I heard everything everybody said about it, so I immediately went back and did a survey, and I think there were 63 responses from the high school and a lot of individual comments, and I will share that with the committee come December 14th meeting, because as I said, that Yonder parent meeting is the 13th. So I just wanted to follow that up, but that I had the news on a little bit earlier, and I heard there were 2 schools where somebody said, one in particular I heard, I think it was Woburn, somebody wanted to go in and charge their cell phone. But we were alerted, as I said, by the FBI a couple weeks ago, so we were all prepared for that. Anyway, I'm sorry I don't usually comment on committee comments, but
I appreciate the clarity and sort of the
It's a
response
pity.
to some of the stuff.
It's a pity. That was once again, a huge lost opportunity for communication. It just makes, it's just on brand, unfortunately.
I know, but I know what I'm saying doesn't satisfy your position.
It doesn't, but I have to say, having some kind of a communication that actually acknowledges that there are conversations happening and that it wasn't just a change of date, it wouldn't have made me happy.
Right.
But I can tell you it wouldn't have made me as mad as it did.
Understood.
And there are a lot of parents out there wondering, why even bother having said anything? Because it's just the date that's changed.
Understood.
So,
And I know that you feel this is a pattern and we can get better and we can do better, and we will.
All right. On to
Okay.
the report.
On to superintendent's report. So tonight we have 2 presentations. The first is a technology presentation, and it came as a result of you, Mrs. O'Connor, asking Ms. Poverchuk, I believe it was something about unplugging the classroom, and then it made its way to, I'm going to say the name wrong, correct me, Mollie? Metevier. I want to say it a different way. Mollie is our library media specialist at Hadley now? Hadley. And Mollie is part-time, but we have elevated her FTE because she is helping us organize and getting organized, number one, at the middle school library, but also we have a big storage unit from Stanley School that has lots of library books and materials in it, and so Mollie is really helping the district organize those. Priscilla took down that Stanley School library, and so really they're a dynamic duo. So I'd like to introduce Priscilla King and Mollie Metevier. And they're doing lights, camera, action, cue the curriculum. And I have to say, we were admiring your dance in my office today, and we said it looked just like you. And Mrs. Kelly said that she saw you dancing at a retirement party, and that is you. So thank you for the invitation to present. Do you want to come down here and you can use one of our microphones? Oh, yeah. Then let me give you this microphone at the very end.
No, there's one right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was giving you yours.
I should link this. Yeah, no, come on. Should I click link yours?
I don't know. Okay, so, oh my God, she looks so cute. So thank you for the invitation to present tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to share the presentation, Lights, Camera, Action, Cubic Burden, Digital Literacy Curriculum for All.
This was originally presented at the MassQ conference at Gillette Stadium on October 18th, 2023. And this is an adapted presentation. If you would like to view the full presentation, there is a link on the bottom of slide number 1.
So on October 18th and 19th, oh, next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, is that the right next slide, Priscilla? It doesn't look.
That was our other, that was the presentation that appeared at MassQ.
Yes.
There's another one that should be.
I'm sorry, it's like on delay, so I'm like clicking it twice.
It's okay.
That's the first one.
The one that appears in the school committee agenda is the correct one. Is that the one you're in?
Nope, I must be in,
Oh, okay.
sorry.
It's okay.
Get out of that. All right. I think it wasn't letting me play that one for some reason. It was telling me I didn't have permission, so let me just try it again.
When I saw the topic of this, I reached out to Ms. Poverchuk to ask her if she could come and talk to us about it, and she assured me that you two are far more adept at this and that we would enjoy this presentation. Well, she said she'd love to come, that you guys were much better at it than she.
Okay, I just loaded it.
No
from-
pressure.
I say Priscilla is she's got all the stuff. Like.
All right, I just loaded it from our drive, so
Thank you.
maybe it's different than what was. Right. How's that look?
It's not on the screen.
Oh, sorry. Looks good to me. How can I get out of this full screen, you guys?
Escape?
Sorry, this is just like.
Where's one of those little kids when you need them?
I know.
I know, I'm sorry, you guys.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
That's the one. Thank you.
Man.
We're back in business.
There we go. Is that the right slide?
Yep, so
All
we
right.
can take on over.
So on October 18th and 19th, the Swampscott technology team attended the annual MassQ conference, and that's Massachusetts Computer Using Educators. They have a fall conference and a spring conference and some stuff in the summer as well. And for us being able to go.
Good evening once again.
All night. All night.
Please note that the field house and the gymnasium are the same location. Once again, the field house and gymnasium are the same location. Thank you.
So for our team to be able to go, it allowed for some knowledge and some skill enhancement, some personal growth, as well as some networking and collaboration opportunities. Next slide, please. As well as some really fun team building. That is us on the field at Gillette Stadium. We had enough people for them to let us take that picture. Next slide, please. So the Swampscott Tech team actually had 4 presentations at the MassQ conference. The goal of our presentation was to showcase what the elementary technology teachers in the Swampscott Public Schools are doing to teach digital literacy and computer science, as well as to inform and inspire educators attending MassQ on the topics of the units we use to teach technology, some of the digital tools that we use, as well as some strategies for reaching all students. Next slide, please. So for a little bit of background information, I am at Hadley and Priscilla is at Stanley and Clark. We see grades K through 4 once a week for 40 minutes. And we do library check out and check in on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. We use the state of Massachusetts framework for digital literacy and computer science to kind of guide our work in creating lessons and units for students. And after MassQ, we found out that we received the DESE Computer Science and Engagement Grant, which was written and submitted by Dr. Bacon to improve our curriculum, especially surrounding like robotics and coding. We will have more details to follow, but it's really, really exciting. The main goal of the grant is to create a rigorous, inclusive, and sustainable K through 12 digital literacy curriculum, which I think is really great that we are building those skills all the way up to high school. Next slide, please. Our units establish consistency across the 3 schools. It sort of follows a spiraling approach. We introduce key concepts and we reinforce them throughout each year. So if you think the skills that they're doing in kindergarten around typing are skills that they'll build in first grade and second grade, so by the time they're in 4th grade, they'll be typing masters. It allows students to be able to delve into more complex topics and explore various applications, and ensures that everybody has an equal and fair opportunity to succeed. Next slide, please. These are our current units of study. For grades K through 4, we have 7. We're going to focus on giving you a little bit of background on units 1 and 2 tonight, which are the units that we are completed or are working on currently with students. Next slide, please.
So also an added component of this presentation was my inclusion of props and costume changes. So I'm able to bring my love of theater, music, and dance into the classroom and incorporate it as an effective and engaging strategy for teaching technology, skills, and topics. And it's really essential to align the subtopics, costumes, and props with the learning objectives and ensure that they enhance rather than they distract from the educational content. So during the MassQ presentations, a series of stage directions were given, and these stage directions were included to offer helpful tips to educators. So on slide number 9, that's when they were introduced to the educators. In the stage directions highlighted online tools, websites, and platforms that we use that are at low cost or no cost, and definitely there has to be a sign-off from the company on the Massachusetts Data Privacy Agreement. Our main concern is to keep our students safe and to keep their information safe. And these stage directions have also offered guidance to create additional presentations to be shared with the Swampscott staff members during the Wednesday early release days, professional development days. So lots of information is also going out to our staff members. So before we officially launch the units,
Next slide, please.
Yep. Thank you. So before we officially launch the units, we start with Clever. And Clever is an educational technology platform, and it's a single sign-on solution, which means that students and teachers can log in to multiple applications using a single set of credentials. Students and teachers can easily access digital learning applications. So K through 2 have their Clever badges, which they're QR badges, and then grades 3 and 4 use their username and their password. And once they get into their device, they can access a lot of applications and platforms. So to help students make a connection with the platform, a connection is made to the everyday word clever via picture books and props such as Tiny Diamond can be used as a visual aid to identify the application. So Tiny Diamond, go Big Blue. And then there's a visual representation of the teacher's clever page is made via Bitmoji. So
Next slide, please.
king, crown, and smiley face.
Oh my God.
And then
Next
emojis
slide.
by way of the extension Joy Pixels are used to help early and struggling readers locate their grade and assignment. So as you can see there, kindergarten gets the red hearts and grade 1 gets the orange hearts. So they're really able to identify where their work is, and all they have to do is press and they get into the assignment. It's really helpful too for the younger grades because Google Classroom is more for the upper elementary and middle school and high school students.
Next slide, please. All right, so we want to introduce you to our Unit 1, which is device parts, device care, and responsibility. And this is sort of the overview. And is there one more slide for this? Next slide, I think.
Got sidetracked by the cape.
Yes.
The wizard.
So did I.
So actually, is this my slide or your slide, Priscilla? It's yours. So on the previous slide was sort of the breakdown of vocabulary used to identify the parts of a device. And vocabulary, we introduce specific vocabulary at each grade level and then build. So, in kindergarten, they're learning the most important parts of the iPad, and then in first grade, we add a couple of extra things, and in second grade, we add a couple of extra things. Same thing with the Chromebook. And then there are also final care and responsibility expectations that students build up to as they use their devices.
So as you can see on this slide, challenging technology topics can be made more accessible, enjoyable, and meaningful for students by integrating another topic, a subtopic, which is wizards for this unit. So wizard picture books are used as a literacy component, and wizard diagrams are used to launch the lesson. So next slide, please. So then students are able to transfer their knowledge of labeling a wizard to labeling their device parts. And as you can see on that slide, visuals are also used to help students read the device part. So lots of visuals for the students, which definitely helps assist with them accessing the content. Next slide, please. So,
Can't wait.
care,
Change master.
care and responsibility are important topics, especially when we have students that have one-to-one devices in using the school's network. And this is taught by the use of the subtopic turtles. So students make a connection to things that they care for at home and school, or things that they are responsible for at home and school. And edutainment is used with the use of costumes, picture books, focusing on the themes of turtles and responsibility. So we take those as two separate lessons for care and responsibility. If you ever have looked at the responsible use policy, it's very wordy. So to make it simple and understanding for students is our number one concern. Next slide, please. So students learn about the expectations for their devices via slides, a student-friendly statement, and a visual. So as you can see, holding the device with two hands, keeping it away from liquid and food. And then students analyze pictures starring Winston the turtle, who is either showing care or no care for his device around the school grounds. So those pictures that you see, Winston went on a photo shoot around the elementary schools, and those were used during the lesson. So Winston can't wait for the new school to open to go on another photo shoot.
I love it. Sorry, I can't tell you my password.
My password is in turtle.
And students use paddle boards or a yes-no selection on Kahoot. Next slide, please. All right. And then within the first couple of weeks of school, students can end up with over 20-plus apps or 25 tabs open on their device. And it can get really out of hand. So this year, an emergency lesson was added into the first unit called Unicorn Crash Control. Again, unicorns are used as a subtopic to enhance the idea of saving a device from crashing like a unicorn in the book Never Let a Unicorn Crash a Party. Visuals also are provided of the steps so all students can access the curriculum and work on the skill. A lot of the times when we are doing technology, there's multiple steps. So by having those steps projected onto the board helps out tremendously.
Next slide, please. So here are some examples of some student work pertaining to sort of that first unit about device care. Got some coloring, lots of coloring, and a lot of diagrams.
Good evening, Mr. Cohen. Yeah, moving on to our next block. Moving on to our next block. Thank you.
So moving on to our next topic, next slide, please. Nicely planned. Unit 2 is typing. That's the unit that we are currently in the middle of right now. Next slide, please. So all of our students participate or engage in some form of keyboarding. As you can see, there's sort of a really big difference between grade levels. So, grades K and 1 and 2 are really, for K and 1 focus on finding keys on the keyboard with some letter matching and some identification, being able to sort of find that letter. Even if you don't know what the letter is, you can still match it. Grades 2, 3, and 4 focus on increasing their speeds, words per minute, and accuracy. I will also say that grades 1 and 2 are on Chromebooks are on iPads, and grades 3 and 4 are on Chromebooks. So there's also a big jump between second grade and third grade because all of a sudden they're navigating a device that doesn't have a touchscreen. Right? So there is I find like a really steep learning curve getting onto that Chromebook and figuring out where those keys are. Next slide, please.
So students in kindergarten connect their foundations learning to the jumbled keys on the QWERTY keyboard. And students really get a kick out of it because they're connecting something that they are learning with their general education classroom to a specialist classroom. So each week, 4 to 5 letters are focused on. Students recite the foundation's letter, object, sound for each letter. Students learn about fall words, and students use Kami to complete activities based on the isolated letter. They trace the fall word, they locate the beginning letter of the word on the QWERTY keyboard, and students complete an activity that corresponds to the fall word. Activities include coloring, matching, tracing, drawing, and writing.
Next slide, please. Here's some examples of student work for that unit. I will also say that there are some really great games on the iPad that really allow them to sort of start connecting those as well. So in addition to all those other things, they also do get some sort of educational games that help them.
And so this is a first grade slide. So students in first grade continue to identify keys on the keyboard. Each week, a fall book is chosen and is read. And students, again, use Kami to complete activities based on fall words from the book. Students read the word, trace the word, and locate all the letters in the word. So instead of just looking at the beginning letter, they're starting to spell other words using that QWERTY keyboard. And students complete an activity that corresponds to the fall word. Again, coloring, matching, tracing, drawing, and writing are also included.
Next slide, and here's some more student work from that unit. Next slide, please.
So this is one of my favorite parts, beginning of the lesson, especially with students. So this was a stage direction during our presentation, reminding us of the online platform Kami. Students at the elementary level use the free version. And what Kami allows them to do is to annotate over a PDF document by using the paintbrush tool. And it also, added bonus, it saves paper. So a connection is made to Bob Ross. So Bob Ross is an artist, and students are artists. Bob Ross has a canvas that he gets to paint on, and students have an iPad as their canvas. Bob Ross has a palette with many colors. Students on Kami have a palette. Bob Ross uses a paintbrush. Students get to use their finger as a paintbrush to create on their iPad. Next slide, please. Last costume. So students in grades 2, 3, and 4 participate in the online typing platform, typing.com. We used to use QWERTY Town, but this year we switched over. So we have the premium account, which the paid version, which gets rid of the ads and definitely retains typing data. So we're able to monitor student use and help students become better typers. Each week they type for at least 10 minutes, and students learn about the expectations for their grade level on speed and accuracy, and students learn a series of typing tips throughout the lessons. Next slide, please. So then students switch gears and turn and talk about a fall topic. Students read a simple poem and then complete typing activities on Cami. Students have a choice of typing activities that go with the poem. So they have tons of choices, and they're allowed to choose the activity that they feel that they best can complete. So typing words, filling in the blank, answering questions, retyping jokes, creating different types of sentences for a picture, generating an acrostic poem, or constructing a paragraph. And next slide, please. And these are some examples of student work. This is where students are using their iPads and they connect the keyboard, as Mollie had mentioned. Next slide, please. Here's more pictures of students working on their Chromebooks on the typing program, as well as completing Cami activities. Next slide, please. And again, more examples of students working and student work. And this was quite entertaining with students during the Halloween day with their costumes and typing. Next slide, please.
So units 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 have some of the same concepts so that students can access that curriculum. So there's always a beginning lesson activator question, so they're making connections to the topic, connections between technology to self and technology to the world. There's always a subtopic that's really engaging with some visuals, choices and options to show their understanding of the skill or concept, and Priscilla's really good at edutainment with props and costumes. But most importantly, we really wanted educators to walk away from our session knowing that they could enjoy teaching and have fun, and definitely use a little bit of bling. Next slide, please. Moving forward, we are working on sort of evaluating units every year and modifying as needed, staying aware of DESE updates, up to date on tech trends, using current platforms, locate engaging literature that promotes diversity, and participating in professional development. I know that we're moving to a new school next year, and we're all going to be together, so making sure that all students have sort of similar skills as they're coming in. I also think we're doing some piloting of possibly moving second graders to Chromebooks as well, so playing around with what that looks like and planning for that. Next slide, please. And we now can say that we have performed at Gillette Stadium and that we are in the same ranks as Taylor, Tom, and Belichick. Hopefully we were able to inform and inspire educators at MassQ on the units, digital tools, and strategies for reaching all students. This concludes our presentation, and thank you so much for including us. We were really excited to be asked to be here. So
much fun.
All I can say is wow. Wow has, library teaching changed in the years that I've been away from the school. And that was just fantastic. I do want to say to the committee before they ask any questions that the latest technology update came out, and I've shared some of those with you in the past. And on it, they were asking teachers to respond to what classes they want to take next Wednesday that the technology department is teaching. And some AI use was being mentioned. So I reached out to Ms. Mackie-Knowles and said, would you come do an updated AI presentation to the school committee on January 11th? So she'll be coming because it seems that some of the apps are now incorporating that, and they have a draft of guidelines for the school, obviously, and for teacher use, but when apps are putting it in there and directing their use, I figured we should come back and circle back with you. But I opened it to questions from you guys or comments.
I'm just really impressed, and it was like so entertaining to watch you. I can't even imagine how excited the kids are
I know.
in their class learning this, and I love the connections to their everyday life, and choice is so important to engaging learners, and it's just so awesome to see the different ways of evaluating or letting them choose how they want to show their knowledge is pretty awesome. Yeah.
I was just thinking about the fact that I think it was only 4 or 5 years ago that the school committee decided to stop requiring a typing component at the high school level, figuring that like these kids have gotten there, and if they're not typing by now, it's not like when we were in school and we all had our typewriters. So it was amazing how antiquated that was. It's stunning to me to see this happening at this level. And to see how much has changed since, my kids, who I don't feel are very old, clearly are, because this is so leagues ahead of what they were doing then. So just thank you.
You're welcome.
I still remember sitting in class, A, S, 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 S.
ASME, SL, F, J, G,
With a
H.
very loud and mean teacher in front of me.
It's so funny.
I agree with everybody. Wow. I mean, it was a great presentation. Can kindergartnens and first graders actually type? Like, I'm so curious. I mean, I can barely.
I taught, I'm from Vermont originally, and before I moved down to Massachusetts, I was teaching at a pre-K through 8th grade school in northern Vermont, and my kindergartners, first graders, and second graders had Chromebooks, and by the end of the year, I had all of my kindergartners doing some very basic typing, but with a Chromebook, for the lower grades, they actually had to sign in with their passwords. So I taught all of my kindergartners to be able to type in their passwords. So they really actually can do it.
Good evening once again. This is Mr. Boa. We're now transitioning to our next block. Moving to our next block. Thank you.
And are really, really good at it. And I really like teaching typing because it's a skill that, students who may not be greatest in reading or math, right? It's actually a skill that they can master and be really, really proud of themselves. And I had some first graders who blew me out of the water as to what they could do on their Chromebooks within 6 months.
Right, you actually, that's a great point. So you were mentioning that you're considering putting Chromebooks down one grade level. What do you find the biggest difference? Obviously, there's a difference itself, but what from a student point of view and from a teacher point of view, do you like the iPad versus a Chromebook or the other way around?
I personally prefer a Chromebook. I think it is easier. I think that there are better resources available for a Chromebook. A lot of the things for iPads are paid. And so if you're looking at rolling out a paid app to it can get really pricey.
Right.
Whereas sometimes the online versions are free. I think the biggest challenge in terms of having iPads with younger students is that there is a little bit of a disconnect. So the second I hand you an iPad, I hand a kindergartner iPad, they're like off and running.
Right.
And so you're like, from trying to give directions, giving them directions with the iPad in their hands is really hard.
Right.
Whereas like with a Chromebook, they don't really know how to work it. So they will sit and wait and learn. I think the hardest Chromebook skill to teach the really littles, are using a touchpad. Yeah. But they can do it. They just need something they've not done before. So there are websites and games that actually allow them to sort of level up their mouse skills to be able to operate their Chromebook.
And they're using that Chromebook too at the middle school and the high school level. Right. So it just makes sense to get them started as early as possible.
Great. If I could just ask one more question, and this is just, the superintendent knows me, just about safety and security. Not so much about the physical computers, but just, we have all these passwords going back and forth, and I'm assuming the companies like the CAMI that you deal with, there's safety and security built into all of that, so the kids, there's no flow of data going back and forth.
So all those applications that we use for students are vetted by the technology team
Great.
So they will not put anything on those iPads or allow them to sign in through their Google account on their Chromebooks without approval. And our technology team is really fabulous, and if we see anything, like we, gather together and we discuss and we problem solve around those issues.
Great. This is a great presentation, and thank you for all you're doing for your students. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just had a really quick comment. Just wanted to thank you for the presentation and, excuse me, just acknowledge, obviously you guys have put a ton of work into this. So I want to recognize that too. I mean, between the presentation and the props and everything else, I mean, it was obviously a lot of work. So, you guys did a great job with it.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I don't have anything other than, because everybody already said it, you must be excited to maybe get into one building and one big media center and have plans in that direction.
Yes, it's really exciting. Looking forward to all the updates that the superintendent has, and the students are so excited about this new move that's going to be happening next year. So they're very eager.
They're really excited about the library. And I tell my fourth graders, I'm like, you won't get the new library because you're going into fifth grade. I'm like, but the library at the middle school is really, really cool. And there are lots of things that you're going to want to read there. So at least they're excited about that. But
They get something.
at least there's that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for.
Yeah, as we walk through the building, the building site, it's just exciting to visualize them filled with kids. So our next presentation under the superintendent's report is something that happens annually, and we ask that the athletic director, Ms. Wolff, come before you for an athletic update. Before we begin, I do want to say that Ms. Steller and I were talking about something that always comes up and to keep in the back of your mind as we go into budget season. And, years and years ago, we talked about the percentage of athletics programs that were supported by the operating budget versus the athletic revolving account. And so the most current percentage rates are this. The operating budget supports 55% of athletics, with the revolving account supporting 43% and donations supporting 2%. So it's 55, about 45 if you include donations, and I know that many, many years ago we talked about at least getting to 50-50. So I park that here as a nugget as we get into budget season and budget talks, and we keep that in mind and we think about athletic fees. But what Ms. Wolff was charged with in brainstorming with our chair meetings that Suzanne and I have prior to school committee agendas was the stipends, equity among teams, and when and how they might be increased. The booster pamphlet we dug out from 2017 and updated, which Ms. Wolff just handed to you and she can review for you. And then we also heard that the registration process for sports is challenging for parents and how that might be improved. So those were the items that I tasked Ms. Wolff with and to come before you tonight and speak to. So I will turn it over to Ms. Wolff. Hello.
My presentation is not going to be nearly as exciting. I should have collaborated and gone first. But just to start, I just wanted to give you a, thank you.
You don't have to stand, Kelly, if you don't want to. Yeah, absolutely.
A quick overview of kind of where we're at right now in comparison to last year. So with fall numbers and participation at the high school level in 2022, we had 260 of our students participate in fall athletics. This year, we were up to 280 that participated. If you look at the middle school, in 2022, we had 100 cross-country runners and 32 field hockey players. This year, we had 105 cross-country runners and 34 field hockey players. And so far this winter, 2022, we had 201 student athletes at the high school, and right now, we're 4 days in, we have 236. Wow. So the numbers are definitely increasing a little bit, which is very exciting. So I just wanted to bring that up. And the other thing I think is definitely worth mentioning is for the first time in maybe forever, haven't found anybody that has found differently. Every single one of our fall sports teams qualified for the state tournament.
Wow.
So it was a very, very successful fall season. I thought it was great. I saw growth in all of our teams. I just really thought it was a wonderful season, and I'm so looking forward to the winter getting underway and so forth. So to jump right into it, I know we've talked about stipends before, and my interest in changing the stipends, in talking with Linda O'Keefe, because she's been here for 20-plus years. She couldn't even really remember the last time that the stipends for coaches was indeed changed. So that's something I think that needs to be looked at. I'm not sure exactly what the process was or who was involved back then, but as I look at it with my knowledge, there are definitely some sports that aren't necessarily where they belong. The big one that sticks out for me is our cheer stipends. Our cheer coaches have to have stunting certifications and many, many other things. Their season begins in mid-August and goes till after Thanksgiving. And some of our cheer coaches can make less than what some of our middle school coaches. They're doing not only sideline cheer, but they're prepping for competitions, doing choreography, putting together music. I mean, it's just, I could go on and on. So that's just one glaring example. Obviously, one of the biggest hurdles is, for me, is that our stipends are in the teaching contract. So it has to be bargained, it has to be worked in that manner versus putting together some sort of a committee or something like that. So can certainly look at it and kind of do up a if only and I could wish kind of a stipend chart, if you will. But that's kind of the biggest thing, is that it would have to be bargained to change all of those things. So, any questions about that before I move on?
I just want to say I'm thrilled to hear you say that. That was one of the things that I've marked off. Is it's horrifying to me how low those cheer coaches are.
Yes.
But so we recently went through a round of negotiations, and of all of the stipends, this was actually one that was not discussed. So I think we have to, as a group, sort of figure out what that process is.
I know, because I feel like the bargaining committee from the union side was like,
They're like, we don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
And it's
right,
not
right.
and they're not necessarily teachers who hold the positions. So so I think we just have to figure out what that is and work with you in particular as somebody who knows what the market rates are.
Yes.
It sounds like something that we would almost impact bargain separate from all other contract items, and then maybe have some teachers who are coaches and you and a different team on that particular impact bargaining.
That's just a question I just don't know the answer to. If someone is coaching who's not a member of the staff, are they, like, how does that even work? Do they get like pension how does that, like, are they pension eligible?
No, because they're not.
Because they're not, so like.
They're not MTA.
But
Right, I don't think they're in the union, but I just think their pay is in the.
Superintendent?
There is definitely some wording in the union around coaching, particularly about their ability to split stipends if they want to, and some other things like that. There's not a huge amount in there, but there is a little bit, which is interesting.
Is this something you can talk about with the union leadership, like getting together and impact bargaining these stipends at some point?
They told us during IBB that it's not theirs to bargain.
Right, yeah, that's what we were just talking about.
So that's what we were just talking about. I said, we just closed some bargaining, within the last year, so they.
Yeah, I can absolutely. I actually have I had an e-board meeting earlier this week, and there were some items that we left off, and so I'm connecting with the union president on Tuesday morning, and I can bring that up as part of a conversation.
Yeah, I've always been led to believe that because it's a schedule in the contract,
That would make sense.
Makes sense.
Right, unless they want to bargain it out
Right, I was just going to say
of the
that
contract, and
exact
it
same
could be
thing.
its own thing.
I'm sorry I had to step out right at that time. I will bring that up, and I will bring an answer back.
That's a great point, Karen.
Yeah, right. And then we could update it, you know.
Right. Then there
The
could be a
discretion
different
of the
committee.
athletic
Right.
department, you know, through the budgeting, regular budgeting.
I will bring that up.
So it was surprising to me to see that cheer makes a tenth of what football makes.
There is a lot less work, so to speak. They're not going 6 to 7 days a week with the coaching. They're not analyzing film. Like, there are a lot of things that make it a little bit different. They're only competing like 3 times a year versus once a week.
Yeah.
So it's more, there are differences.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
1/10 of.
Yeah, and if you look at other districts, they're not as low as us, but they're more similar to, you know, what a cross-country stipend may be or something along those lines. So, moving on to the booster pamphlet, I gave each of you a copy of it. I met with the heads of our boosters and our coaches at the beginning of the year to look at things, their questions, not only their questions and procedure and stuff like that, but to see what are the concerns that they have with the pamphlet that we had, and then brought their questions back, and Pam was able to talk to council a little bit and get some clarification on stuff. One of the biggest ones was the original said that each of our individual booster clubs have to be a 501c3, which is extremely expensive, extremely labor intensive, and with our constant turnover, because, you know, when somebody's student athlete graduates, they tend not to want to still put in all that time and energy, which I totally understand. So, you know, you get constant turnover, and it affects all that stuff. And from what we got from council, that's not necessarily something that has to be done, which was received very, very well from everybody.
So they don't have to be 501c3?
You do not. There are still parameters that have to be followed in regard to, you know, filing certain tax forms, which are very basic, very simple to do, those sorts of things. A lot of procedural things and so on and so forth that are in here. But that was really the big one that we were able to take out of there that made people feel a lot more comfortable. I am moving forward, going to meet with boosters twice a year to not only go over the pamphlet, but to talk about procedure and stuff like that. I had tasked my coaches with doing it, but found that with all the other duties and everything that they were having conversations with their boosters, but not all of the information was getting across that I would want to get across. So changing that way that's going to be as well. Any questions? I know I just gave this to you, and you probably haven't had the opportunity.
So you're gonna edit it to take out the 501c3 stuff?
Correct.
But also, is there a way to check that this is getting done?
Yeah, so the way that the laws, if you will, and everything read, it's that the school administration can ask for proof of their tax forms, their financial ledger, stuff like that.
Once it's created, it can get passed over to people. You just sign the checkbooks or say to someone else. So does it make sense to start, like, pretend we have a blank slate and start fresh, and you to see everyone's, or the administration to see everyone's book and to make sure they have the right forms? I mean, I think it's intimidating for, like, I mean, there's parents with skill sets, obviously. There might be an accountant or whatever, you know, really doing the books, but more often than not, it's like, I think I did the books once, and no one ever gives me a budget.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the boosters for softball.
I just think, like, it's intimidating when you say, like, you know, you have to fill out the Form 990. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's just like, if you have samples of those and you're checking that everyone has sort of like a binder that has, like, if everyone's given a binder and says, these are your rules, and these are the forms you have to fill out,
and you pass this on.
This is when you have to, I mean, I just think, like, I think we have this opportunity with you meeting with people twice a year and all this stuff to, like, sort of put a system in place.
Yes.
I don't know.
I have to say, this on its own is a big, I've never seen this before. I think
it's handy.
Well, it was started in 2017, and we dug it up and thought, Oh, where are we at with that? And
So
Kelly had
Well, it was also
Right.
COVID.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of great, I mean, this is just, it's a lot for people to read and digest, so it's helpful, obviously, to sit with you and like highlight the must-dos, but I think that,
So I have a question regarding boosters, and this is comments, feedback that I get from community members about sort of the disparity in boosters. And that some of it's perceived, I know that's true, versus actual. But, when you have a booster who is buying, luxury box seats at the Garden for not even the whole of the team, but for parts of the team, and then you get other teams that, are lucky they can scrape together the money for their coaching stipends. Is there any guidance around that? Is that okay?
Yeah, so I can tell you the Celtics game that you're talking about was a reward for top sellers for a fundraiser that they did. And it coordinated with that fundraiser. So
the rumor that they have box seats.
They do not own box seats. It was a reward for the particular fundraiser for the top sellers of the fundraiser. So that's why it wasn't the whole team, because when you read the brochure, you'll see, we don't mandate any student athletes to participate in fundraisers. It doesn't affect playing time, obviously. It doesn't affect your ability to go to the banquet and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to force anybody. The funds that the Booster Club raises are, they're for things like dream pieces of equipment. You know what I mean? So things that our budget can't necessarily justify buying. Therefore their swag, as we call it, it's no different than some of our teams like that do snap raise. If the student athletes meet a certain threshold, the company will provide them with different prizes, whether it, some of them have been hydro flask water bottles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, it depends on what the particular program is. So, and that's where you see the disparity is the booster board, if you want, so the president, vice president, whatever, and the coach getting together and saying, how much fundraising do we want to do? What is our goal? What are we looking to fundraise for? What are we looking to get? And it's different team to team. And size of team, obviously, is a big difference. And what I find is the fundraising tends to go much better in the fall season and then declines as you go because people start to get a little bit of fundraising fatigue, particularly if they're in more than just, they're in other clubs and because everybody's trying to raise funds wherever they can. So that's kind of where the
Which is what you said earlier about, does some more of this money come out of a regular budget versus fees? I mean, is there a way to, we talked about budget earlier, but that would help some of this, especially some of the smaller teams. Just, there's 15 kids compared to 50. Their ability to raise money just is difficult.
Well, this is why I ask the question sort of every couple of years. You and I have talked about this before about, sort of booster-specific teams versus like a Big Blue Boosters, not unlike what Marblehead does. So that it's really sort of, raising the, when the tide comes up, it raises all ships. Because there's definitely a disparity, and we can't necessarily be in the business. First of all, we don't have enough people to do it, but, I know that we can't sit around and go through everybody's expenses. But sort of the expectations just seem very different depending on what team you're on.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel right. Because it's sort of like a chicken and egg thing. You have a lot of people, so you raise a lot of money, but you get a lot, but having a lot of money helps you get more people. So, knowing that, and look, we've got a football player here at the table. So, that the force of boosters behind you is really strong, and that feels really good. And it's not just parents. It's, all the old guys here in town who used to be in the Gridiron Club and whatnot, which doesn't necessarily translate to the swim team. you know, as like a newer team that doesn't have that same kind of,
To what team?
the swim team.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah, no,
have no idea.
that's true.
I have no idea what their boosters are like,
Right.
so no offense, no.
And I think it's different too when you look at a program like boys basketball that has 3 levels.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to have more people raising money, but they're also going to have.
Good.
Mr. Gold.
This is the longest school day tonight.
You know, you're going to have more expenses. When you go to have your banquet, it's obviously going to cost more money because you're putting on a banquet for a lot more people. You know, you go to buy swag for the kids, you're buying a considerable more amount of whatever it is you're buying, and so on and so forth. So not saying that it's equal. In football, I always think is kind of a different animal because it's the sport that's been around for so long. They not only have the football boosters, but they have a gridiron club that has nothing to do with us. It's a bunch of people from town that really is not affiliated with us. And then when you're looking at boosters, you know, we can put together guidelines and what our expectations are and what the process is for us accepting any kind of a donation from them. But at the end of the day, they're really not part of the school district. So it's that kind of fine line. I can definitely mandate to them, yeah, you can donate this and this is the way that we do it and so on and so forth, but it's very difficult. And Amy, just to talk about the single booster versus the individual, both ways have pluses and minuses. I lived the single booster thing when I was at Manchester Essex. There was a lot of, you know, you talk about right now, talking about like one program raising more money than another. There was a lot of issue around, you know.
We do more.
You know, the parents from, you know, this team are much more active than that team, so why should that team get the same thing as this team? And you start going like this, and then if a team wants anything, they have to submit a request to the All Boosters Club, and is part of that, well, you know, you only raise this amount of money, so I don't think we're gonna.
I think the hard thing is for the kids who see the mismatch and don't necessarily know that. So, you know, having a female athlete, I can tell you that she's like, yeah, of course, of course the football team gets a coach bus to go to wherever they're going. And I get it. I'm privy to information that you've shared with me about how those get paid for and the fact that those are boosters.
Not always, though. And that's what some of the kids don't realize either. With NRT right now, they cannot get us a bus before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if we have a state tournament game, such as field hockey with Foxborough, we couldn't get a bus here in time to get them there.
Yeah.
So we have no choice but to go to an outside charter company and get them the nice bus. Well, the other kids that aren't on the field hockey team, like, you know, soccer, who went to Brockton in a regular school bus, they're like, how come we didn't get that really nice bus? Well, this is why. Your game wasn't until such and such a time, and we could get the bus to get you there.
Yeah.
The good thing about that is that the soccer players were good enough to come into my office and say, hey, can we ask you a question? I said, absolutely. And then they're like, well, that makes sense.
Good.
Glad to answer it. And that's what I'm trying to convey to the kids is I want them to self-advocate, and if they have questions, I want them to come ask the questions. I tell them all the time, my door's open. If you have questions, something doesn't seem right, please, please, please come see me so that we can talk it through. But I also understand how the kind of rumor mill gets spinning very quickly as well, so. Yeah.
Actually, I got a question for you. So
Sure.
this has actually been very informative, and I picked up on something you said. I was taking some notes during this whole thing about what you said about boosters really aren't part of the district, and I guess I just wanted to clarify, there was some back and forth earlier. Suzanne, you made some comments as well. We're not setting an expectation here that you're going to be going through the boosters' finances or their books, right?
No, I think, so another district, for example, thankfully not ours, had an issue where all of a sudden a coach started giving all these receipts to their booster club and saying, I bought all of this stuff and I want to be reimbursed, like immediately. Hadn't requested any of the stuff from the boosters program, then started accusing the boosters program of stealing money and it got very ugly, and so on and so forth. In a situation like that, the school administration would have every right to say, boosters, give me your books, let me see the emails where the coach was requesting these kind of things and it was agreed upon. So kind of to do an investigation and figure out exactly what the root of the issue was and where does the truth lie in all of this.
So it'd be a special.
That's kind of the hard part, is that's kind of the hard part then, because it's like you have responsibility for it when it goes south, but you don't have any responsibility for it.
I guess what I'm thinking is, if it was like kind of a business as usual thing where you had this expectation to go through all of them annually or whatever cycle it was, it's kind of, now the school's getting involved in something that's really their own individual, regulatory obligation or tax obligation. Now the school's involved in that. And I guess that's really the distinction I was trying to make here, but I can appreciate what you're saying about a special circumstance.
And it has happened.
I mean, it makes sense to leave the books alone for people that don't raise money for stipends for coaches. But as soon as they're raising money for stipends for coaches,
Then they're paying our
every
people.
right to
Right.
have
Absolutely.
our noses completely in it, right?
Wait,
Like,
aren't all teams raising money for coaches?
It depends if they feel like they need it. So some teams don't because of the numbers. So, cheer, for example, right now, they only have, like winter cheer right now, I think has 13 girls participating right now. And in the schedule for the stipends, they're allowed 2 coaches, more than enough. Okay, I can use swim as well. So swim is not just swim, I always abbreviate it, but it's swim and dive. Diving is a very specialized thing. Not every coach that knows how to coach a swim team knows how to dive. So there's usually 3 or 4 of us schools that get together and hire a dive coach, and our divers go and they all practice together. And we kind of split up a stipend, if you will, for that dive coach. So that's a little bit different. It really depends. And it's handled very similarly to, so I'll tell you, like girls and boys basketball, they've always had this shooting machine upstairs. And it was donated way back before I was the athletic director. And there was a little oopsie last year when a net was being put up. The machine hadn't been broken down yet, and it broke the machine. These machines are very, very expensive. They came to me and wanted me to get a new one, and I was like, sorry. Like, I don't spend that kind of money on a piece of equipment for any other program. I can't justify that. So they went to their boosters. So that was given to us as a donation, much like if they're asking for an additional coach for some reason, that money's given to us as a donation from that booster club, approved by school committee to be accepted. The only thing we've changed now is before I was athletic director, the boosters were just writing checks and handing it to these coaches that were hired. There was no taxes, there was no...
I'm sure I wrote one of those checks.
There was no regulation on how much a particular coach was getting paid. It was really like, kind of like the Wild Wild West. So we changed it in that it had to be in line with the stipend schedule, and it had to go through HR and the business office to make sure they were properly and lawfully being taxed and everything else. So that was kind of a big one. It brought equity, it brought, our legal issues in line and all that kind of stuff. So one could argue that they're both just different types of donations, if you will. I understand where you're saying that one's going to finance a coach versus financing a piece of equipment, but it is indeed a wish, if you will, or a need that as a district we can't finance that a particular team wants for a particular reason. It's vetted by the coach first to the boosters, which I've made very, very clear now. The boosters have to agree to it, say that they have the funds to have that happen, and then it moves forward from there.
To you?
Yes, they'll ask me, this is what we want to do. We've discussed it with our boosters. We generally go with the lowest stipend position in that particular sport that is allowed. Sometimes less than that if we have somebody that's only going to be doing part-time. So for instance, the dive coach is only working with the kids 1 to 2 times a week for the diving aspect of it, so that's a little bit less, plus they're shared with other people. So there's caveats that we talk about that we put in the spreadsheet and we work with from there.
How many of those coaches do we actually have?
Which ones?
Of the,
That people are paying for?
yeah, that people are paying for?
It varies year to year, to be honest, it really depends.
So that's the funny part. I'm speaking as a softball booster. Like, we got an assessment last year of, I don't know, $2,300 for a coaching stipend that none of us knew at the beginning of the season that we were going to need to raise money for.
And that's, I can tell you, is what spurred the, okay, I'm meeting twice a year, because the information is not getting conveyed like it's supposed to be.
And if that's, like, is this something that, you know, we only fielded 1 team last year. We didn't even field 2 teams. So do we need 3 coaches? And so I guess that's sort of the funny part of when it's being paid for by the teams, that it seems like it is just a status quo as opposed to being actively managed by you.
It really depends on the situation. I can tell you at softball, it was supposed to be for pitching, because that third coach was a pitcher and a pitching coach. And that's, again, one of those positions where the average coach, unless you have a varsity coach, God bless you, that was a pitcher, that's a specialty position that you can't just up and, it's very much like soccer wanting a goalie coach. Same thing with ice hockey and those sorts of things. It's supposed to be a specialty thing, and I was led to believe that it was approved, so hence the reason, the changing in process and so on and so forth, to make sure that that's taken care of.
So theoretically, it would need to be reapproved.
Every year it's reapproved.
Right.
Yes, it's not a given every single year.
Right.
And then this way you're going through HR, so they're, quarried and all that.
Even if a coach is not being funded by boosters, we have some programs that have volunteer coaches. Every one of them is interviewed with me.
Good evening once again, Mr. Cobb. We are now moving to our next
When did you get his that over?
It's like 9 o'clock.
These kids are like, I don't want to go to high school.
So they are all interviewed by me, they are all quarried, they are all fingerprinted. We go through the vetting process, absolutely. The number one priority is always to make sure our student athletes are safe. So people, even, we have students who have graduated, this happens a lot in the spring because they come back early from college, and they want to come back and help. And they're flabbergasted when I say to them, you have to be quarried and fingerprinted first. You're an adult, you're not a student anymore. And they look at me and, you think I'm a bad person? I go, no, not at all. However, this is the process that we have to follow, and so on and so forth. So we're very, very strict with that.
So do you assess the teams each year in terms of how many kids are now on it versus last year? Like if they've had more, if they need more coaching?
That's one of the things that's looked at. The other thing that's looked at is when the coach comes to me, what is their reasoning for wanting a coach? Is it because of a specialty position that they want to be able to give? Because I've had parents come to me of like goalies and say, it's really hard, I don't feel like they're getting coaching. And it's because it's a specialty position and coaches don't really know. So it's hard because it is case by case. It's why do you need this? What is your end game with having this extra person on your staff? Like, what's it doing for the team? What advantage, if you will, are our student athletes getting by having this? So that's really the way it's looked at.
I think that you coming here is always really helpful.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of rumors and there are a lot of questions, and it's like, it just gives us confidence that you're on top of it. So I appreciate that. And I'm also a big fan of policies and procedures being institutionalized beyond the person in the job. So like doing stuff like this is great because it just streamlines, it just makes it so you can say, no, these are the rules, this is for everyone.
Yep.
Like, it's just, thank you. Really appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions?
I definitely have a couple of questions.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was wrapping it up.
No, sorry. So something that jumps out at me, particularly as I noticed it when we were doing bargaining, even though it wasn't something that we've actually bargained for, is the gigantic differential between football and the other teams. So football has a range of between $26,000 and $31,000 a year in coaching, versus field hockey, which has between $6.8 thousand and $8.5, so a quarter of the cost.
Yep.
And almost the same number of kids.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit less, but almost the same number of kids. I won't even go into cheer because I know that you already are looking
So
into the differential there.
field hockey this year had about 27 kids, football had 46.
Okay, so volleyball, for example, I was looking at this, has had 44 kids, I think.
Possibly. We kept a little bit bigger of a freshman team this year.
So I, you know, that would be the same sort of thing, because I know that volleyball coaches are in line with field hockey coaches. It just seems to me that football has an inordinate budget for a normal amount of kids.
So it's because the way the sport is. It's the safety. It's a huge safety component because it's such a contact sport. It is the fact that each position has to be coached very differently, so you have to have people to coach those positions differently. It's also the fact that they start a week before every other sport and they go a month later than every other sport. So their season is much, much longer. That is, you know, that's a lot
So
of the
I'll push
reason.
back a little bit, because obviously with what happened at field hockey this year is proof in the pudding that it's a really dangerous sport. It's contact, and I think any coach could make the argument that special coaching is necessary, especially for to be successful. So, you know, I'm bringing this up in the same way that I bring up the boosters and about equity. It seems like that to have a $30,000 budget while the average team is working on 8.5 seems like a big disparity.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you say that special coaching is needed, because special coaching is needed really could be argued for all of these positions. I mean, if you look at cheer, I mean, that's pretty, I don't want to say it's dangerous, but like, they're throwing kids up in the air.
It's very technical.
I can't go technical. I can't go in there and coach that. So I'm going to push back and say, is it that's what's needed, or is it that's what's always been? Because to me, it seems like a massive issue of inequity.
Yep. I will tell you that that's what's needed from a safety perspective. I couldn't imagine it being another way, and I will tell you that if you look at the number of coaches, it's going to look skewed compared to what it is. Our football coaches all give up percentages of their pay to be able to fund additional coaches because they're that concerned about specialty coaching and safety. If students are not tackling the right way, you're talking about catastrophic injuries, spinal injuries, neck injuries, TBIs, and that sort of thing. It is imperative.
But that's still $30,000 that they're maybe splitting up amongst more than just the 5 coaches that we see on that.
And again, if you look at the stipended pay, and not just for us, this is the way it is in every district. This is the way football coaching is. It is, again, the amount of time put in is significantly more than what other coaching positions put in.
Do those stipends include the summer sessions? Because
Because
not allowed to have
so
sessions.
yeah, if coaches do out of season fitness coaching and so on and so forth, that's at their own discretion. They're
Gotcha.
not paid for that.
Okay.
But I will tell you,
Okay.
our football coaches are meeting, they're doing varsity games Friday night, JV games on Saturdays. They're meeting Saturday afternoon and Sunday, evaluating and analyzing film and game planning for the next week. Then Monday, they start with practice again, and it's just a constant cycle from August 15th to 17th, depending on how the calendar falls, until after Thanksgiving. And if you go to the Super Bowl like we did 2 years in a row, then you're adding a whole nother week of work, whereas our other teams that we're talking about start maybe August 23rd, 24th, and their season ends right around Halloween. And I'd give them 2 hours of practice, maybe definitely 5 days a week. Once in a while, they'll do a shortened kind of get-together on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on what they're
They
practicing.
certainly have a lot more games, though, than football games.
Again, but it's still the same amount of time on the field. So they're still investing those couple hours a day versus whatever it is.
It's really hard for me to get past all of the other sports being a quarter of the cost of football. I don't know.
Well, we have to have the stipend conversation. You know, it has to start with me speaking to the union president about how are we bargaining this, and then we go down that path. I mean, this isn't going to be solved tonight, so.
No, I know that.
No. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is football is the sport that is bringing in significant revenue. Thanksgiving Day just brought in about $27,000.
But Kelly, we can argue that. I mean, look at what's happening on ESPN and girls softball. Like this is one of those things where the chicken and the egg, it's all related. And so when you put the effort into football, and football is the place where all the kids want to go, of course they're going to want to go and see and go because it's fun and it's a big community event. But it could be a community event just as much for volleyball. But it's what are we putting in as a community to make it equitable. And I don't even mean to be just at girls versus boys, because then I think there's also a big difference between boys football, and boys soccer. You know, boys soccer is right in there where it's just a quarter of the cost of football. And they certainly don't have the crowds. So, I mean, I get it. Like, bringing in that money is great, but are the other teams, are we giving them the opportunity to bring in that money? And I kind of would argue no, that it's not really, that it doesn't seem equitable.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk about girls and boys basketball.
Yeah.
Our stands are packed for boys basketball. Our crowd travels to away boys basketball games.
So why do you think that is?
The games are more exciting. They're faster paced. It's just the way it is. It's the difference between the female athlete and the male athlete. You can't change that, unfortunately. And the other thing that plays into it is how successful a particular program is. If a team's having a good year, more people want to come and watch them. I try very, very hard on social media and everything to make sure that I'm getting the word out about.
You get it about every single team. Every single team.
I even have stood out in the hallway and said to the kids, girls basketball's playing home against Marblehead tonight. I hope to see you all there. Let's go, let's go, let's go. They're like, are you crazy? We're going to Marblehead to the boys game. I'm like, no, come on. Like, the girls need your support, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, nope, see ya. You know, you get a lot of kids, hockey. The place is packed. There's just certain sports that people enjoy coming to watch more. I will say that volleyball this year had a very big increase in their attendance for games.
There's 40 girls on the team too.
Well, on the varsity team, yeah. But you've got to remember, volleyball has 3 levels.
Yeah.
So it's different than.
I
just think that we all, as a community, need to do better for our girls.
Without a doubt. But we're not
But that's
going
not
to
solve it. It's not
Right,
gonna solve tonight.
you're mad at society, and we're not going to change
You have
that.
great questions, and I think like challenging Kelly to explain to you, particularly, like sort of your equity questions is worth like you having a conversation with her. But and I think like it's I think it's something with your athletic council is, if you still have it, like to talk about, like how do we drum up interest in girls sports, like with giveaways or with whatever. But I know when my girls played soccer, the fans were sick. There were so many of them, but they were really successful, and they were popular girls that drew kids to watch them.
I see what happens. There were so many people who went out to support the field hockey team for so many reasons. Absolutely, I'm grateful for that. But that was also a community effort that you worked to get people
it's a much
there.
bigger. Yeah. Without a doubt. But
I also want to thank you for that.
All right, that's our buzzer to stop.
Mr. Kohut.
I have one more question. I have one more question, which is the management of the fields. and whether or not that is, like if something is, and this is for us as well, if something's in our building, so the volleyball court, and something goes wrong with it, we redo it. But if something goes wrong with the turf field, that's not our domain, is it?
We don't, the school district does not own a single field in this town. It's all, those are all town fields. So we do not repair them, we do not maintain them. The only outbuilding is the field house, as they call it, which the locker room facility down at Phillips Park. That's the only thing that the school district owned. So when you look at the turf, you look at Phillips paying for landscaping, paying for repairs, paying for whatever, that is not the district at all. That's something that has to go through DPW and Gino Cresta.
All right, now.
I just have one thing. I want to publicly say what I shared with the superintendent, that along with Amy and others, I went to the field hockey game in Foxborough, and I said this to the superintendent. You did a magnificent job dealing with what could have been a very volatile situation, and you kept the kids. You wanted them to have a great time. You wanted them to scream, but you kept them in line. And for that, I know the parents I was sitting with and myself were very appreciative. You did a great job with that.
But she does that at every game,
right.
too.
Right.
So, and it's nice to be recognized.
Right. And I know I saw you at the football game and said the same thing, but I just wanted to publicly say that I was, and the parents were completely impressed with how you handled. There were several hundred students there, and you did a great job. So thank you for that.
All right. One quick thing before you leave. We have a donation later tonight in honor of Jack Hughes.
Yes.
There's nothing really on that donation form that sort of describes who he is?
Yep.
Can you just give a few words?
Yep, and can I just ask you, did you want me to touch on the registration and the other stuff that was on the list too, or?
I think come back.
Yeah, come back.
Yeah. Come back.
It's getting late.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as you know, Jack Hughes was a longtime basketball coach here. He recently passed. And several of his alumni, people that played for him or friends for him, have reached out. We have two particular different groups, and the second one I have not passed on to you yet because we're still working on it. But this first group is the Geron Foundation, along with a couple other people, because they were friends with Jack. Members who work with the Geron Foundation were his players. So what they have chosen to do is, if you've ever been in the gymnasium during a volleyball game or basketball games, you'll see that we have chairs that we put out to use as the benches, so to speak, and they're padded and they say Big Blue. We've had those since the building here opened, and they're to the point now that when you sit on them, sometimes the legs start to move outward. And we're running a little low, to say the least, and they're just really not in good shape. So we discussed the possibility. It's a high-ticket item. It's a little over $11,000 to replace those.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted you to be able to say something about Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
Now, because
So-
I knew he was a coach, but I don't know.
So that's who he was. He was a basketball coach, very successful, won a state championship. He also, after he retired from coaching, he did the game clock for football for a while, and he was just always around, doing things and helping out. So
I just wanted to just get that before we
Yeah, that's
did that
great.
donation, because I just think that's important when someone
Absolutely.
donates in honor of someone.
Mhm.
It's just nice to know what a special person that person is. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry
Thank
for
you
this.
for coming,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Miss Eric Stella.
Budget
Time
update.
for a budget update.
Yes.
Thanks, Kel.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night, everybody.
Too.
So some of this bleeds into tri-chair, so I don't know
Okay.
if you want me to talk about that.
Yeah,
or
you
if
can
want
talk
me to
about it.
wait
I mean, you
until-
can talk about it. It's fine, and I can just jump in, whatever.
We can all jump in.
Okay. So just to give a kind of update since we last met on where we stand with all things budget related, I did receive the health insurance reconciliation yesterday evening for the Chapter 70 article that has been discussed at length. I am still going through it to understand their methodology. But based off their calculations, it looks like the article should be increasing the town appropriation by 186,000. So
More than so 186 more than what we thought.
no, in total. So the increase to chapter 70, I believe, was 217,000 thereabouts. The school's health insurance increased. So the reconciliation they did was comparing it to what they had budgeted. So I'm going back and forth with Amy about that, but long story short, our health insurance increased $31,159.
So we should be getting the difference.
That's the difference is the 186.
Right.
And that should
Have
be
been
the
on the-
basis for the FY25 calculation of what we're going to get.
And should have been the basis for the
warrant.
article that is not in the warrant.
Correct.
Correct, but that we've been assured is being drafted already for January.
So we have a meeting on the 15th, that after the town meeting that's happening on the 11th, we have a meeting on the 15th to review the drafts of that warrant article, the transportation warrant article, and we're also discussing sort of looking at general ed and special ed slightly differently, looking at creating a budget with 2% plus growth for general ed, and then the same thing for special ed, but anything that's over that for special ed to come out of a stabilization or reserve account, and that account or accounts like that are going to address things that might be variable that we have no control over, like special ed, or like perhaps energy costs at some point because we had a really bad winter, or this new building is way more expensive than we thought, or things that are just out of our control. So there'll be a way to budget and stay within the budget guidelines with the town, fiscally responsible budget guidelines, but it'll also allow us to deal with some variable expenses. And on the town side, they want to do the same. They want to have the same things for like maybe snow removal or something like that, where they're budgeting.
Or trash.
Or
you mentioned.
trash, like
Yep.
you mentioned trash, like.
And inclement weather, how the weight of the trash is more on rainy days, and therefore, so, yeah.
A higher dump fee, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I know there's a lot of skepticism, but I think we had a really successful meeting.
Well, we had a tri-chair meeting Monday evening.
So why didn't they put this on why wasn't this on the
Well,
agenda
a lot of it
despite
was-
the fact that he said to you and you said to us that it would be?
So Dave said to me that he had the language and would have, he did, but.
He did what?
He said he wanted to put it on, and he did read the language, but I think what happened is.
But he didn't.
He did.
I don't remember that.
He did not.
No,
He did not make a motion to include that in.
Oh, you're right. He never made a motion. He just talked about it and read it. But I think that when Mary Ellen made her motion first, I think it got people's back up. I mean, they were really angry with the process and not having the language for that ahead of time or anything.
Well,
And
I know
then-
what it's like to be angry at a process because we've just been completely.
Right. So I think that this keeps happening. This keeps happening to us, just like you said, like there's delays and delays and delays, and then all of a sudden we have our hands are tied and we don't have time to do anything. And that's part of why this meeting is happening on the 15th. It's 2 meetings before they anticipate even thinking about the warrant, the articles on the warrant, opening and closing it. So we know we're in the right timeline for having this discussion and bringing those warrant articles to their.
Can we make this meeting public?
Well, the select board.
I have zero faith that meeting on the 15th is going to net us anything. Zero. The trust factor, I mean, I'm the only one talking here, but I know I've spoken to each of you. The fact that Mr. Spelios was allowed to say, this is a last-minute ask, and neither the town administrator or the chair of the select board said, no, actually, it's not last minute. We've been talking about this since, what is it, August 31st.
So,
Is
Abhorrent is the word you're looking for.
it is, the lies of omission are actually doing damage to our budget. And I'm very frustrated by this. I'm very frustrated that that we've been talking about getting ahead of our budget story for months now. And twice we've said, Suzanne, you have to go and speak before the board. And twice you've come back to us and said, no, it's not time to fight this. They're on our side. They're going to do it with us. We're okay. This isn't a fight to be had. And I know that you believe that. But it's 5 years now of the same lie and the same person lying. There have been, look, in the same way that you've been had, I was had, you were had,
Right.
everybody who has sat in your chair has been had by him. And there's one commonality, and that's a person who doesn't tell the truth, despite the fact that we have had written agreements to do this. So, where do we go from here other than continue to complain about it? That's the piece of it that's the hardest for me. I have no faith that you and Mr. Grishman and the town administrator and our team are going to sit in a private room and anything's going to come of that unless it's public.
I agree. I mean, I can't hear the words, we had a really great tri-chair meeting. Just don't say that to me. Because I know I said it in the past.
Right.
You've said it in the past. We have all said it in the past. And it's never true. So it's not you. It's happened to all of us. There is no such thing as a good tri-chair meeting where anything is accomplished. Even if you think it, because even if you think it was, it turns out to never happen.
I mean, how much more, we have our director of finance getting a document that she crafted with her counterpart on the other side and getting it in writing. It was witnessed, they signed it, and still it is as if it's in an ether. It doesn't exist.
I just want to comment as well, and I think we are to the point that drastic measures need to occur. And I don't really know what that is, but I don't believe they're going to do a darn thing. I don't believe what they say to you. I didn't believe what they said to me. I was hopeful what they said to you, but that certainly didn't happen. Our options are real limited about what we can do. But I don't believe them either. And what we're going to have another town meeting, special town meeting in January. Well, I hope we get a quorum. And what happens if we don't get a quorum in the middle of winter? It's bad enough sticking one in the middle of holiday shopping season. It's really bad now, 4 weeks later, and where's all that money coming from to do it again? To put a few things on the warrant that may or may not get there, that may or may not affect us. And, we've tried to, as I said earlier, we've tried to play nice, we've tried not to play nice. I don't want to play nice anymore. I don't believe a darn thing they say. I agree. It needs to be public.
And I don't actually agree with this new methodology of we're just going to fund certain things, and then everything that might be variable, they're going to pull out and sort of then own. So our budget is what? Paper? Do you know what I'm saying? They have whittled our budget away from us and our control, and it is now in their control.
Right.
They're taking special education. They're going to take energy. They're going to take.
I don't know.
It is what they want to do because they want to live in this artificial 2% baloney that the world can't support, And the way they're gonna do it is by taking everything that costs money, like out of our budget, and leave us with what?
I mean, state law is really clear about the school budget.
And who is supposed to be
So
responsible
it's still our
for it?
budget, it's all still in our budget. It's just-
Technically.
It's just where the money is coming from. It's all coming, I mean, it's all town money, right? It's all town money. It's coming from, the money's coming from the town. It's just coming from different sources.
The town administrator has been lobbying for 5 years. He does not like the way that our circuit breaker is being used in a conservative way. He wants that money spent down every year. And every year he's fought us on it, and now he has finally won. And interestingly enough, now that we have spent down this money, and the first year that we have a reserve fund is supposed to be for unforeseen circumstances, a rainy day fund. It doesn't,
It's supposed to grow for us.
And you don't touch it the very first second you get it. But because of what they have done with our budget, that's exactly what happened.
And that's how they want us to use it. So every year, we have to go to them for our energy. Every year, we're gonna have to ask for the special ed.
Did you get that?
Well, what I will say is I do think that there was much debate on how those things are funded. And I don't think I got I think there was actually very differing opinions on the way with which special education, transportation, and the new school operating costs would be funded. And there was quite a bit of discussion around that. And I will say that I think the thought process of it not being in our budget and being, something that we asked for later was not something that had majority support in that meeting. So I don't think that we'll be in I would be surprised if we end up in a space with which we're putting forth a budget and then there's all these things sitting outside of it. I don't think that that's I don't think that that's the intention of certainly the majority of the elected officials that sat in that meeting.
Right.
And so I think I would say that there was general consensus around, pulling out some of the costs that we know can't live within this guideline and saying, okay, well, these can grow at different percentages because we know that they can't live within the 2% plus new growth, right? These categories, like I mentioned, there was the categories that we've been discussing for probably a couple of months: special education, the increased transportation, and the new school operating costs. And then trying to see if Pam and I can work to make once those are all kind of pulled out, to stay within that guideline, which I do think overall, I don't want to guarantee that that's something we could do, but it's certainly much easier for us to make that potentially work or come at least closer to what they're looking.
What's the difference between that and just looking at all the line items and seeing how much that line item grew? So there's the special ed budget, and that went up 17.5%, and everything else is in that 2.2. Like, this isn't. To Karen's point, why do you have to pull it out? It's just.
Well, I think it's when I say pull it out, I mean more so when I'm calculating. When I'm calculating, is our budget staying within that guideline? It's just more so a visual saying, okay, here's our total budget. I'm netting out special education. I'm netting out the $200,000 for transportation, $190 for the new school. Now, what's that net percent increase once I net those out?
But what's wrong with just saying we can't live within 2% plus new growth?
We've said it since the day.
Period. And do you know what I mean? But again, we're always backing into their number.
Yeah, why, we said this last year, why don't you just tell us the number and fine, we'll just move on with it? Why do we even go through the dog and pony show?
Well, for one, that number, so what if the number's 3%, right?
It was last year, and then they said, too bad, it's 2.2.
What if it's a number, and then all of a sudden we're stuck with another $1 million in special ed costs, right? And then we're in the same place with 3%, right? So this is like a solution kind of to say, we get that we have these variable expenses that are completely out of our control. And we talk about the 4% increase in the consortium, the 17% somewhere else, like, or whatever, these random
But we've been doing
tuition
that.
increases.
With all due respect, special education has to be funded regardless.
That's what she's saying.
Hold on, please.
Okay, sorry.
Regardless of our budget. If we go over $1 million, it is the town's responsibility to pay that special ed dollar, regardless if we have money in our budget and they
You're
don't.
echoing something Sean has actually said in the meeting. He's actually said almost the exact same words that you're saying right now. This is our responsibility. I mean, he
has said
must
that.
have said that
Several times. He said that at the same time that he funded our budget in a way that forced us to spend down our circuit breaker and bust into that rainy day fund immediately.
Right.
Like, let's not make this guy into some hero that he's not.
Right. One of my first meetings here, and I think it's my second or third meeting, I was actually going away. We all had a meeting with him, Mr. Fitzgerald, excuse me, and some of the members of Select Board to try to explain to him what a circuit breaker was. And we tried and we tried and we tried. And I know I finally, after an hour, had to I don't trust the system at this point. There is a reason that way back in the day that, you know, a select board, a school committee, or whoever could hire and fire a particular teacher, and you could go to a meeting and say, okay, I'm gonna fund this and not that. There's a reason the school budget in Massachusetts is what it is. That's why it's one number. And what's happening right now is going to get this district in a boatload of problems. And we're already seeing it. We've seen it for the last couple of years. I don't want little pots of dollars, you know, for this or for that, or, you know, I don't want that. I agree. I think the idea of a reserve fund, whatever you'd like to call it, is to, his words, build up $250,000 a year, $60,000, whatever that dollar is. So God forbid something happens, we have millions of dollars stashed away in an account somewhere that we can use. Right now, though, and I agree with you, Amy, I feel like he said, okay, we're going to put this money away. We're going to use it again.
Yeah. Oh, and look at the school. Look at the schools. They've already dipped into it.
Right. Or we get, oh, look what we did. We helped approve a new school. Well, you know what? There's a bunch of voters who disagree with that.
So I want to be productive and say, and not because we could all sit here, and I know I could lead the charge of just sitting here and complaining about it, but I think that we have to act. And I think that there has to be a public meeting. There has not been a meeting of all three committees in several years. That has to happen, and it has to happen in public. There has to come a point where the school committee, the presentation that the superintendent and our director of finance gave to the finance committee is critical. That's something that people need to hear. And they're not tuning in to the budget committee. They're certainly not tuning into this, but they are tuning in to the select board meetings. We have to have that. There can't be any agreements going on between our two departments that aren't in public, because they're meaningless.
I agree.
So do you think trying to get your presentation on the select board meeting,
The one I gave.
the one you gave to the finance committee, to ask the select board to have an agenda item, to have you present that?
I think that should be at the special town meeting.
I agree.
Every department is giving an update.
Right, it was just a first quarter memo.
Yeah.
We don't even have the town's first quarter memo yet. Like, where do they stand? I'd love to know that. I don't know why we're going around doing this presentation when we did it to FinCom, because we were invited there, and they were very receptive to it, asked very positive questions. We have not been invited to Select Board.
I think we should do this at the town meeting. All the departments are giving an update. This is our update.
All of the departments are giving updates?
It says on the warrant that departments are giving updates. I have no idea who's signed up for it.
We didn't sign up for it because we have no article on the warrant.
But I guess my point here is that the story continues to be how Mr. Fitzgerald is telling it and not the truth. And I don't want to wait for the town to make their presentation or to invite us someplace when you've done the work. You've already done it. So let's share it because it's important information. And just because they haven't done it yet doesn't mean that, look, it's good that you did because you know you're ahead of the game.
I'm not.
We're not getting anything with honey here.
I think that we do have to make a report. It does say town departments have reports, and we can certainly just lay out the facts of our budget. I mean,
You tell us what to do.
I'd like to vote on it. I'd like to vote on it. I'd like to come to a decision so that we are not just complaining, but actually putting a plan together.
I sent my thoughts
I know.
to all three boards. I sent it loud and clear. And if they didn't read the message that's in there, that's on them.
I think that your email was fabulous. I think that it's also to a small group of people, and there are more decision makers in this town than just the recipients of that. I think that for us to wind up on the town meeting floor in May, balking at our budget once again, and about where it's totally performative, and they just tell us what it is, and we thank them for it and move on. That can't be the time when we talk about what's happening in the schools. It has to be now.
Yeah, I think if there's an alarm bell to ring, we need to ring it, and I think the town, meaning the people in the town, not just the town elected officials, but like the people in the town.
I think we have a good news, bad news, a good news, bad news, good news kind of presentation to make, right? Like this is the state we're in right now. Well, good news first, like the school's going great, blah blah blah. I mean the new school, and then sort of the bad news about where we are budget-wise, but then the good news, because we're working with the town and they've agreed to.
But we're not.
No, but I think we need to say that publicly.
Leaving that part out. and just
No,
telling them,
we have to kiss up and say that we're doing.
Don't you think we should say publicly that we're working with them to say? And
I think we could say we've been trying to work
or that
with
we
them.
want to, but I
There was very
wouldn't.
little happiness here.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
if you say that, then the
the
people
facts
think
speak
that
for
it's all
themselves.
set.
Yeah.
And I think people need to know that it isn't all set. I think we need to lay out what our issues are so that people know what our issues are, the real, actual issues.
I mean, because I do want to remind everybody that when this building opened, what that caused, because there was no communication between Board A and Board B. I lived through that. You know, you lived through that.
We talked about the difference between where we are now and where we were with the high school build is nobody projected what the operating cost was going to be of the new building, and it became a shock to everybody. And we have done the work to figure out, between Max and Cheryl, have done the work, like, how great is that we've projected what we think the operating cost will be? You know, it's very different than back in the day when it was a shock.
I remember when, you know, people may or may not like Dr. Malone. I remember sitting in a meeting, one of my first, saying, we are 7 figures underwater. This is what I need to do. I don't want to be part of that again. And there is, and again, no disrespect. The school's opening on time, fantastic. Let's move on. Okay, it's great. The school's being built by professionals who are being paid handsomely. Let's move on. School's going to open. We're doing our due diligence. Everyone should be excited about that. But we got to get there, and we have to make sure there's enough money in the next umpteen years to educate everybody. So there's not a whole lot of good, in my humble opinion.
I'm just going to go back to an action plan. I think that we need to either have a meeting in public with the 3 committees or
I like that idea, quite frankly. I really do, with all of us at the table. One of the things that, just to piggyback off of what you said, Mr. Pastor, is that as Cheryl and I have gone through with Lisa Kultz and every administrative team, this budget process and trying to figure out how we're going to make things work, one of the things I finally said to Cheryl is, I'm not going to be proud to open a new building that is not fully staffed in a way that is going to make that administration successful.
Right.
I am not going to start cutting the resources. Oh, we've got a $100 million building, but we don't have the resources
Yeah,
to
we're down
provide the
25 people.
Right. So, I mean, I hear everything that everyone is saying. I would be much more comfortable with you all having, all of us having a joint board meeting, because you're not at the tri-chairs. And let us take this tri-chair and see if it happens on the 15th. And I want to shout out to Suzanne that she kept coming back at that tri-chair with what she's been after me for the last 10 years. What are your action items? What is your timeline? Give us the timeline for when these things are going to be done. It must have been said 5 times by Suzanne, and we finally got there. So I would be most comfortable if a meeting were called with the 3 boards, and we were all in this room together, and we all talk about this. We could give that first quarter memo update. FinCom has already heard it. Maybe they have new questions. Let Select Board hear it. We can talk about the state of affairs and what we've been told is going to happen. I don't have a problem with saying, I actually was very receptive to, and I commended him, that special education is so volatile. I understand what you're saying, Ms. Marshall, about factor it in, the percentage, and the percentage is what it is. But if there is this town guideline that we're trying to live by, okay, I'll live by it in general education. But not only was it 14% increase, now it's 5%. I have been in Finance Committee meetings with the North Shore Education Collaborative, who has a capital project that is going to give us a special assessment, potentially of $100,000, and then their tuitions are going up 15%. So that is so volatile that it does have to be in a separate bucket. And this operating costs, how about a thank you for the work that was done to project what potentially that's going to be?
From us?
No. From no. I mean, we couldn't be doing what we're doing without Max Casper. And like, I would love the town to recognize, but none of them were here back in the day, that we didn't, I mean, some of them were, that we didn't have this information when this high school opened. So I think there's a lot of conversation that has to occur, and it has to occur with everybody in the room. That's my humble opinion.
I mean, here's the thing, and I'll ask this directly to you, Suzanne. What is the difference between believing them that we are going to have a January special town meeting again versus believing them that they signed this agreement and it should have been there to begin with? Why is January any more believable than the position that we're in now, where it should have?
Because they have no choice. It can't be at a regular town meeting.
Why not?
Because it's violating the agreement.
I would say that that's not a
Oh,
cause
they've
for
been
alarm
told
for
it will
that.
be violating an agreement. So it has to be.
So if they're not going to, I think the reality is that we should be thinking about this as we get citizens petitions, we pull together a town meeting, and we get citizens petitions and pull together a warrant. Why are we relying on them?
I think you're going to doom and gloom, as you and I often do and have for
I'm
years
just
and
so
years.
spent.
I understand that. But the rational side of me says, we've been talking about a joint committee meeting for how long? Call it. Let's get it together. Let's have this budget discussion in December before everybody goes off in their little silos and starts talking about things. Let's put it on the table. That it's not going to happen at a tri-chair. We're all not going to, like, call the boards together. Are you against that?
No, I'm not against it. I got pushback at that first tri-chair meeting, like, what's the agenda? And once again, it's us coming to defend stuff, right? That's that's the
Well,
agenda.
that's fine. Schools can be the whole agenda then.
They can be the whole,
I'm
the
fine-
school
I'm fine
budget,
with that.
the
But
school
I want
department
everybody
budget.
to hear it. I want everybody to hear the work that's gone on here. because the
We have plenty to show.
mischaracterization was just disgusting.
We have plenty to show. We've been asked for a lot of information. We've provided all of the information. It's actually been enlightening and in a positive way to us, and it validates the school department a lot.
I'm not
So I'd be
surprised even
happy,
in the least.
I'd be happy to have us share.
So, and how does this actually now happen? Who calls the meeting and who can say yes and who can say no?
Well, that's just it. Now everybody needs to, pick a date, be able to come on that date,
Yeah, it's either
agree to it, show
one
up.
of their meetings or one of ours.
Right. Preferably
We
in
can
person.
invite everyone to the December 14th meeting, because that's the last one we have. I mean, that's it. We don't have one until.
Yeah, but people aren't tuning into this. They are tuning in.
No, but I'm,
You'd have to go to a select.
I mean, if we have a.
We'll go to a select board meeting.
No, we have to either do it on a day that.
The select board's meeting, that's what we're saying.
So I would say call them, and if they say no, then we'll put out a public letter asking for it. I'll shame them into it.
Something.
I'm tired. It's like we coax them, we cajole, we play nice, then we get fed up, we kick them out, and then we play, and then we get mad, and then somebody says, you really get more with honey than with vinegar, and we try that again, and we get nowhere. It has been the same, it's Groundhog's Day. This is the same thing for the 5th time. The 5th time.
And you think it just feels different to me because I didn't experience it in the.
No, I'm not.
No, but I'm saying you feel like Groundhog's Day because you felt it, and he feels like Groundhog's Day because he felt it.
Karen.
And Karen feels like it because she felt it.
That was more than
And-
5 years ago. Yeah.
And now I'm feeling it, and I should be feeling it as
Yes.
strongly and deeply
Yes.
as you guys are, but I don't, because I still have this trust. I still am like.
Why? Except we
Stockholm syndrome.
I don't think you're saying groundhog. I Groundhog Day to me is just repeating.
Plus it's funny.
Which it is, but I think I'm not going to put words in your mouth or your mouth, Glenn. But I think what we're looking forward, we see what's out there ahead of us, budget wise, and we don't want a worst case scenario manifesting, down the road. I think, it's funny to say Groundhog Day, but we're trying to.
I think the
I know
way
we all
being
are. We're trying to get
treated
ahead of
feels
it.
like Groundhog Day.
We're trying to get
the
ahead.
same thing about, how many times have we tried to get articles in the warrant? And it's, too last minute, you didn't follow the process.
And then,
Well, if somebody
and then
told us
other
the
warrant,
process.
and then other things get on the warrant
Yep,
or get on capital that we had no idea on.
or weren't asked
Or,
opinion.
or someone says, oh, we should do this because this has to happen. That's garbage.
So,
Can Cheryl say something?
Yes.
Because she's been.
So I just wanted to ask this of the committee, and I know it's a kind of a divergence from your typical, process, because typically, you get the superintendent's budget, we go through the whole presentation, the whole book, you have meetings, you have the public meeting, you vote on it, and then it goes to, finance committee, and then they start to.
and then they say, nope, 2.2.
Starts to see the information. My question to you as a committee is, what are your, I don't know how comfortable you would feel with this about actually at the joint meeting, if we can push it back a little bit, not have it in mid-December, which quite honestly, with their town meeting December 11th, I think that's
Pretty much not gonna
happen. It's not gonna happen.
unlikely going to happen in December. If you had at least some of the budget information ahead of time and could review it, maybe we didn't have a chance to meet on it, and actually just had a joint meeting earlier in January where we didn't go through everything. It was just, here's our high level, literally, this is like the summary of where we're at. This isn't the details, but we want to make you aware, and we wanted to, kind of have discussions jointly about how we can resolve some of these issues. I know that's totally different than the typical process.
I think it makes sense.
But then that way,
That's fine.
we're kind of getting at least the big numbers out there. We're not going to go in the weeds with everything. And
I think that's early
everyone
enough.
can see it, talk about it. Because I was, in my head, and I understand why it makes sense, but in some ways, you would kind of like to get select board, FinCom's feedback, not that it's going to change your decision-making, but before you're publicly voting a budget, at least that you get there, and it might not change anything for you as a committee, but at least it gives you the opportunity to hear what they're saying. Should there be any kind of tweaks, adjustments, changes? And then that way, it's not like, oh, here's the school committee's voted budget. Oh, now we're going to go to everybody. And they're going to say,
I
well,
like that
don't
idea.
that.
I like that very much.
That's
I do too.
That's fine. I still, I still think that we as a group need to have some sort of presentation at this special town meeting. You can't just, I don't think we can just let it go.
Well, quite honestly, we weren't planning to go because there's no articles in the warrant for us. And I'd rather put my energy into preparing the work that we would present at the joint meeting. Like, I don't think, I've sat through so many town meetings where you all have tried to get up as individuals, and I've given a report, and it's not the main item on the menu, and so it's not really heard. I will do whatever you direct me to do, but that's just my opinion. I love this approach. We're through the holidays. It's a very measured approach with, here's the high level of where we're at.
I agree. I think that is probably a good change up. So long as it is a meeting of, all three committees.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of time to find a common date.
I will stew on it a little bit more, but I am leaning towards a presentation at that meeting. And the reason why, very simply, is the promise that we made last year, which was to tell our story. And it's the only place where people are really listening to the school committee. We don't have the public engaged with us the way that that the select board does, mostly because there isn't the same amount of controversy. And I think, Suzanne, to your point, I'm not surprised that you're not feeling burned the way that the rest of us are.
No,
But what I am surprised in is that very much at this last go-round, you were very cognizant of this idea that we tell our story, that the voice of the school committee is not something that gets interpreted by the town administrator, that the person in charge, superintendent, is talking about where we are. And it's not an opportunity for like, oh, we're working together well. It's not anything about that. It's about, here is where the schools are. This is what we're looking at down the pipeline, and we're predicting some problems that we need to get a head start on and not wait until May. Because even though we're all working on it, and FinCom is working on it, and the select board is working on it, that's all happening behind the scenes. So we go into town meeting with a group of people who are, for the most part, going to listen to what the Finance Committee says. So it's incumbent on us to, before we get there, that we're not having the fight on town floor. We're having the fight beforehand. So it's two parts. I think part of that is by giving a presentation at this next town meeting when we don't have anything on the agenda. In some ways, I think it's actually even more interesting because we don't have a dog in the game. And I think that just sets us up better for the May town meeting.
I think if we do that, and then we call for for a meeting of the three boards, whether it's early January, whatever that is, I think I can live with that. I will say, though, that I would like to call for a vote, just to put it on record, that we are going to request a meeting of all three boards, us, the select board, and the finance committee. I really want it on record.
Yeah, I agree.
So can we request time at this town meeting, under that, you know,
I don't
town
think we have to
department?
request time. I think that.
Oh, I think we've always had to ask
I
the
think
moderator
the
if I can
moderator has
present.
to know who's.
We've
Yeah,
always had
We
to.
just have to tell him.
Like yesterday,
Right.
you're gonna
Right,
do
just have
it.
to tell 'em.
So that's what I meant, so like
Oh,
get
yeah.
time
Yeah,
allotted,
that's
and then
easy
we can figure out who, if it's not going to be Pam, if someone else, but get
No,
the time.
I, it has to be.
It has
Well,
to.
I think it has to be you,
It has
because
to be
that's
me
who
and
people
Cheryl.
want to
It
hear
has to be you.
from. People want to hear from Pam, you have the gravitas in this district.
Oh, I do?
People want to hear from.
Okay.
Maybe not with 3 people.
Serious gravitas you have. Understand that.
No, I mean, I can send an email to Mike McClung tomorrow and request time. And then we'll just figure out of all the work we've done.
I mean, I think that, it's not like a big PowerPoint. It's
No,
really
no,
just
it's a
like,
quick
it's really just like
budget
showing
overview.
where we're at, like the sort of, it's almost
I
your
think
budget
we-
memo in a picture form.
It's a modified version of the budget memo.
Right.
We have some slides that could tell a story that, because we're hearing that there's information that people are curious about that we don't often need to look at, but Cheryl's pulled some information lately, as I was alluding to, that's very interesting. So yeah, it's fine.
And it will be at the beginning of the meeting, and then you don't have to stay.
Fine.
Yeah, then you can get out of there.
Yeah, it's always really subtle when I walk out the side door and up the stage.
So why don't you don't have to sit in the front. You
I'll
can
sit in the
You
back.
know, you just walk right up the front row, you just go right up the middle.
Come down, you say your piece,
Right.
and that's all I have to say about that.
In the back,
And you
and
get out.
that way you
Fine.
can sneak out.
I can have a grand entrance down that aisle. All right, it's getting late and I'm worried about my
I
kids.
just-
Yeah,
Just one more
that's
thing, can I
bad for
then
this guy.
make a motion, please? To
Yes.
direct the chair of the school committee to contact the chairs of the select board and the finance committee to schedule a in-person live meeting for sometime in early January.
Public meeting.
Public meeting, thank you, couldn't think of the word. A public meeting of the 3 boards.
Someone want to second that?
I will second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a bargaining update?
No.
Or is it
No.
status quo?
There's a quick update, just in terms of, I can't remember if I brought anybody up to speed on this, but we had an internal meeting to discuss opening the negotiations with our AFSCME, union, the
Custodial unit.
custodial staff. And all it was discussing budget and Max Casper bringing us up to speed, but there's nothing to report.
All right.
Just a kudo to Max Casper for being probably the most prepared person entering a meeting like that I've ever worked with. So,
She's like that with every meeting, it's great.
yeah, I was very
It's a
pleased.
keeper. Okay, so actions and votes. We have quite a few donations, which is pretty awesome. The first one was the one I was speaking with Ms. Wolff about. This is the chairs from the Duran Family Foundation, and it's $11,015, which is unbelievably generous, in honor of Jack Hughes, longtime coach. So, are we doing these? We have to do these all separately.
Yeah, but
So I'll make a motion to accept the Duran Family Foundation donation for the chairs.
I will make a motion.
Great.
Second.
All those in favor? That one was easy. The next one is a anonymous donation for $360 that paid for the student fan bus to go to the Foxborough Swampscott field hockey tournament game.
it was already.
I'll make a motion to
It
approve.
was already paid, right? So
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, but it still thought it was important.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
all those in favor?
The next one is a typo, it's $4,500, not 46, just my apologies for that.
Is it a typo on the donation too?
Not on the donation, I think it just.
Yeah, so this is,
Oh, it
no,
is
it says
a typo.
46.
It's a typo, the check was for 45.
Okay, So the Weatherspoon Charitable Foundation, the Weatherspoon Charitable Foundation is always so generous to the school. It's really unbelievably, we are so lucky to have them. So the $4,600 is a donation for the cable TV program, equipment, supplies, or anything that Mr. Dulett seems fit or the program needs, which is pretty awesome.
I will make a motion to approve the $4,500 gift from the Weatherspoon Foundation.
And I will second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. This next one is also a Weatherspoon donation for the music program. So it's to be used as needed for the music or chorus, $2,500.
I will make a motion to approve the $2,500 gift from the Weatherspoon Foundation for the music and chorus programs.
And I will second.
And all those in favor? Unanimous. All right, there's another generous donation. These guys are awesome. This one's really cool. For the Discovery Learning Center and Miss Borden, $7,500 for them to use for anything they need to purchase for that program that she runs, which is
That's
great.
huge, yeah.
So $7,500 from the Weatherspoon Charitable Foundation for the Learning Discovery Center, or no, it's not, that's not.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Discovery Point and Miss Borden.
I'll make a motion to approve $7,500 gift from the Weatherspoon Foundation to the Discovery Point program and Ms. Borden.
Hey, I'll second. That's incredible.
I know, right? All those in favor? Another unanimous vote. And then there's another money for the drama club. So this is for $500 for the drama club to be used as they need.
I'll make a motion to approve the $500 gift to the Swampscott High School Drama Club from the Weatherspoon Foundation.
I will second.
All those in favor? All right, we really, this Weatherspoon Foundation and the Christie family is just so generous.
The Christie family? So,
Yeah, they're basically, I mean, I don't know if any other people are in the foundation, but.
so I mean, this is $15,000-ish. And I know that we've approved some other things earlier this year from them. So it's tremendous generosity. Should we invite them? Do they want to come before us? I mean, I don't know if that's a.
Well, I can email.
I mean, it would just be nice
It's
to.
always nice to be invited, even if.
Yeah, I mean, even if they don't want to come, but I just like, it's such generosity.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And the fact that
they're great. Their kids, I mean, their kids all went here and they're giving back to programs that are near and dear. So, I mean, I think.
And
it's
with
great.
no strings attached, like.
Yeah.
These young men were sitting on my lap in the middle school library in summer school when we had a thunderstorm and they were waiting for their parents to be picked up when I ran the summer school program. So it's
I know, right?
amazing.
It's
It's
like full
absolutely
circle.
amazing.
Yeah, it'd be nice to.
Yeah, it's pretty,
to-
they're, yeah, it's really unbelievably generous. This was a lot of gifts here. We're really fortunate to have a community that supports us like this. It's
Yeah.
really great. Anyway, two items on the consent agenda, which is designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district. The school committee may adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any committee member, any items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda for discussion. So we had the regular session minutes from November 2nd and our budget, the whole subcommittee meeting from November 16th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, a second for that.
I will second.
All those in favor? All right, and anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor? You guys, I skipped public comment, I totally forgot.
Is there anybody there?
Is there anybody looking? Can the kids go home?
Yes.
Yes.
You guys can.
It should have gone an hour ago. I'm going to start limiting you to 2 hours
Yeah.
because
We appreciate that.
I'm
So
sorry I
I
didn't
didn't
get
get
that
public comment.
It's all right.
Anyone would like to speak